Hey everyone, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for helping me reach 100 subscribers. I honestly couldn't have done this without your love, support, and constant encouragement. Every like, comment, and subscribe means a lot to me. Now let's keep this journey going. Our next target is 200 subscribers, and I know we can do it together. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's grow as a family. Thank you once again. Queen of the Pirates follows a gender-bent Luffy who dreams just as fiercely of becoming Pirate King, except this time, she's aiming to be Queen of the Pirates. The journey stays close to canon in spirit, with adventure, battles, and crew building across the seas, but shifts in interesting ways because of Femme Luffy's presence. Her dynamic with the Straw Hats, especially Zoro, leads to plenty of awkward, funny, and emotionally charged moments as friendship slowly blurs into something more. Along the way, the story balances classic One Piece chaos with growing romance, loyalty, and the challenges of being taken seriously in a pirate world that underestimates her. Disclaimer: this story do not belong to me. The author is Queen of the Pirates by Mustar0013. Respect to author.
Chapter 11, Misadventures in Luge Town. This is gonna be awesome, yelled Lucy in excitement. She was nearly jumping as she and her crew stood in front of an open town gate. The sign above the gate read in neat letters, Luge Town. Nami was reading out of a little travel book she had brought from her hometown. Every pirate who heads to the Grand Line always stops here to stock up on supplies. It has everything from food to weapons, read aloud the thief. Lucy was only half listening. She was beyond excited. From what she heard from Shanks as a kid, this place was where Galdi, Roger, the king of the pirates, was born and executed. Lucy turned to her group and she gave the best pout she could make. Please, PPPPLLLLLLEEAAASSSSEEE. Can I go and check the place where they killed Galdi? Roger, it'll only be for a while. PPPLLLEEAAASSSEEE. Begged Lucy, practically on her knees. Zoro smirked, finding his begging captain quiet amusing. Nami looked up at the sky. I guess you can. Just make sure you don't get lost and meet us by the... Nami, she left when you said, I guess, said Usopp, pointing to the smoke cloud of a skull and crossbones with a straw hat. Nami pinched the bridge of her nose and she gave a groan. Great, why do I have the feeling we're all going to be sore at the end of the day? She asked herself. Everyone's sweat dropped in agreement. Yay, I got ice cream. Yummy tummy ice cream. Okay, just be careful. We don't want it to spill. The little blonde girl giggled as she skipped with her 3-scooped ice cream cone. She didn't watch where she was going and she crashed into someone's leg, landing on her bottom and her ice cream spilled on the person's leg. The little girl gasped and she looked up, her brown eyes meeting dark gray irises. The owner was a man about 34 years old. He had short gray-white hair that would make people think that he was older than he looked. He wore a white jacket with the words, Justice, written on the back of it with cigars strapped to his upper arm. The jacket was left open, showing his muscular chest. He also wore brown gloves, blue jeans and brown, leather boots. He was smoking 2 cigars in his mouth and he gave a menacing look at the little girl. The father of the little girl gasped. See Captain Smoker. Place please, sir. Forgive my daughter. She didn't please. Begged the father as Smoker reached for the little girl. The child flinched as Smoker placed his hand on her head and he kneeled to her eye level. His eyes gave a slightly soft appeal. I'm sorry. My silly pants have eaten all your ice cream. Here, go buy yourself 5 scoops, said Smoker as he handed the little girl 1 berry coin and stood up. Thank you so much, said the father of the little girl as Smoke left with the other Marine he was with. The little girl gave a tiny wave. Thank you, she said. Smoker lifted his hand and he gave a silent wave. With that business finished, Smoker headed off to the docks. When he arrived there, he and the Marine with him spotted Lucy. The teen gave a turn and she spotted the 2 Marines. Hey, can you guys give me some directions? She called as she walked over. Smoker quirked his eyebrow. He hadn't seen this girl around town. Can you tell me where the place they kill people is? Asked the she pirate who would be queen. You mean the execution platform? Asked the Marine. Lucy nodded and she looked around. Yeah, it seems that I can't find it anywhere. This is my first time being in this town, said the teen. Smoker just stared at her. He knew he had seen this girl somewhere and he felt like her had seen someone who had also looked like her. Lucy sighed when Smoker remained silent. Huh, guess ya don't know. Ah well, said Lucy with a shrug as she began to walk away. Hold it, kid, just follow the smoke, said Smoker as the smoke of his cigars went in a direction. Lucy blinked before grinning. Wow, thanks, mister, "See ya," she called as she ran in the direction of the smoke. Smoker watched her as she left, his mind trying to remember where he had seen that girl before. "Man, these swords are badass. Why did they have to cost so goddamn much?" complained Zoro to himself as he stared at all of the magnificent swords that were held on display at a swordsman's shop. If he could, he would go get more bearers from Nami. However, if he did, then that would just increase the interest Nami had added to the money he was already borrowing from her. With a sigh, Zoro gave a longing look at the silver blades. "Take this." Clack. Asterisk. Zoro turned his attention to the sudden noise. A group of people surrounded a fight that was going on. Zoro looked over the heads and he spotted two knocked-out pirates and a woman with a katana in her hands, her hair with a short midnight blue, and she accidentally dropped her glasses. Zoro found them and he held them out to the woman. "Here you." Zoro's mouth stood agape as he looked at the woman's dark brown eyes. They held the same light that Kuina had. "Oh, thank you," said the woman, a light smile on her face. Zoro felt so shocked that he crushed the glasses in his hand. Both he and the woman gasped. "You, how could you?" yelled the woman angrily. Zoro flinched, still in a state of shock. The woman grabbed him by his ear and she yanked him to a walk. Zoro tried to get out of her grasp, but man, this girl was stronger than she looked. "Whoa, hold on, where are we going?" yelled Zoro as he was yanked. The girl gave him a glare. "To the Marines. You're gonna work there till you have the money to pay my glasses," she said. Zoro twitched. He would get in major shit if he went there. Zoro clenched his teeth and he gave a hard tug, making the swordswoman fall on all fours. Zoro's katana also went flying. It landed next to the woman and she picked it up, examining the blade. She slowly turned to Zoro. "So, you're a swordsman?" she asked as she stood up. Zoro crossed his arms at his chest and nodded. "Yeah, I use Santoryu style," he said. The woman gave a nod. That's a rare style. Only a handful of people in the world know that style," she said. She then gave another nod. "All right, follow me. I have a better idea," she said as she walked to the direction of the swordsmith. Zoro raised an eyebrow, but he followed, curious about this girl's idea. "Here we are. This is the one place in town where you can get good swords," said the woman, gesturing to all the weapons. "Okay, here's how you can get out of paying me. Since you're a user of Santoryu and you have the legendary Wado Ikimonji, I want to see how good you are at picking swords. A smart swordsman knows what blades suit them well. All you have to do is pick two swords that I think represents your stature. Pick the right ones, and you can leave without paying me and I'll pay for the two swords you picked. Choose wrong, and you're coming with me to the Marines," said the woman. Zoro nodded, seeing this as an easy obstacle, and he moved to a barrel, looking over all the swords. As he searched, he decided to pass the time. "So, you're a swordswoman, huh? Sounds impressive," said the green-haired swordsman. The woman looked over her own sword. "Thanks. I wish to become legendary one day. I hope to be with the greats. Like that one pirate hunter, Roronoa Zoro," she said. Zoro gave a smirk as he searched. "Really? This Zoro really that famous?" he asked. The woman nodded. "Yeah, but he's been doing odd things lately. I've heard he was last seen in Arlong Park fighting by the side of a female captain." "Huh, I wonder if she is his girlfriend," she said to herself. Zoro's face twisted and he flinched, a salmon tint now spotting on his cheeks. "Gee, girlfriend, why would you think that?" he asked. The woman sighed dreamily, stars sparkling in her eyes. "I find it very romantic. The two of them, a pirate hunter, a pirate captain. It sounds like a forbidden love," she said in a dreamy voice. Zoro turned more red and his mind went half blank. Me and Lucy. Lucy and me. Forbidden love. That sounds so. Zoro couldn't bring himself to think his thoughts. His heart pounded fast at the thought of Lucy and him together. What would happening in that kind of life? Holding Lucy in a protective yet caring way, making sure that she was safe and that she always had that 1,000-star smile. He placed his thoughts on hold when he found one particular sword that caught his interest. It had a black and gold handle and it was in a scarlet red hilt. Zoro could feel an odd sensation run through his veins as he held the swords. He could tell that something was up. The swordswoman also noticed the strange feeling. Out of her pocket, she pulled out a small red book and she paged through the book. She stopped at a page in the book that had the same picture of the sword. "Ah, just as I thought. This is Kidetsu. Kidetsu III. It's a part of the Wazamano grade swords. You just have to get it. Think about how strong you'd be with. This sword is cursed."
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
Muttered Zoro, taking the sword out of its sheath, and he held it to the light. The shopkeeper of the sword store nodded his head. Yes, the Kidetsu swords are known to be cursed swords. Many men who have had posses that swords have died of its curse. Just listen to me and don't buy. That sword will only lead to death, he said. Zoro smirked and he held up the sword. TCH. Looks good to me. If it's as cursed as it's said to be, then let's see which is stronger, The sword or my good luck," said the smug samurai as he tossed the sword in the air, sticking his arm out and closing his eyes as the weapon came spinning back. Time went into slow motion as the swiveling blade reached Zoro's arm, and missed it by a curve of the blade. The sword pierced to the ground, digging its way to the ground. Zoro opened his eyes and he gave a knowing smirk. "I'll take it. What a load of crud. I followed that guy's directions but, I still can't find the execution platform." "Dang," said Lucy to herself as she walked around a corner. She had been searching for the execution platform for an hour now and she was getting more impatient than usual. Lucy stopped and she stared at the sign that caught her eye. Written in fading gold letters were the words, "Gold Roger's Bar." With sheer curiosity, Lucy walked her way down a staircase and into a dark room that looked like a bar. The chairs were turned over and on the tables and the place was cold and quiet. There was only one chair that was not turned over and sitting in that chair was an old man with black shaded glasses. Lucy walked in and the old man looked up. Excuse me. The sign outside says this place is called Gold Roger. Is that a misprint? And why is it called that?" asked Lucy. The old man gave her a nonchalant, bored look. "Get lost, kid. You're too young to be in a place like this. Besides, we're closed for good. Starting today," he said as he took a bottle of sake and pouring the liquid into a glass and gulping it down. "I'm retiring. So beat it." Lucy sat herself on a bar stool. "I just want to know why this place has its name. You see, I'm looking for the execution platform and I'm lost." "Can you tell me where it is?" she asked. Lucy then sat up straight when she saw a giant skull on the man's table. A long, gaping crack was impaled on its forehead. "Wow, that skull is so huge. How cool," said Lucy with interest in her eyes. The old man stared at the skull with a fixed look. "Killer Giant, one of the most notorious villains in all of the Grand Line. He sent the many lives of men straight to hell," he said. The old man then smirked. "That is, until Galdi. Roger came and took out the behemoth with one slash of a sword and one shot of a revolver." He pointed to the larger crack of the sword. Lucy bounced on her seat and she begged the old man to tell her more of the famous pirate king. The old man agreed and he told her the most feared villains of his time being killed by the king of the pirates himself. He even told her about the first time he met Galdi Roger and about how the great pirate era came to be on the day Gal was killed. He then said, in a distasteful, that there were only fake pirates of this world and how the town of Luge was now looked as a mockery. Lucy let out a small giggle and she tipped her hat to cover her eyes. "Don't worry, old man. There are still great pirates out there, like me. Galdi Roger was and still is the greatest pirate ever known. And I'm gonna be just as great. When I leave this town, and reach the Grand Line," Lucy looked up with a determined smirk. "I'll find the One Piece and I'll become the first ever queen of the pirates," she said confidently. The old man looked at her in disbelief first before his eyes widened. For one mere second, the bar owner thought that Galdi Roger himself was sitting in her place. But just a second later, Lucy sat there once more, her grin still on her lips. The old man finally let out a warm smile. "Well, it's the first time I ever heard something that ridiculous. If there are pirates in this world like you, girl, then I just might be convinced enough to keep this place open," he said as he walked to the counter of the bar. "Here, let's have a drink. I haven't been in a good enough mood in years." Lucy scratched the back of her neck as she looked at the different beer bottles. I'm not allowed to drink stuff as strong as this." "Sake's fine but, I'm still 17, she said. The old man chuckled and he pulled out 2 glasses of powdered milk. "Very well. This stuff will work just as well," he said as he handed Lucy the glass and he raised his. "To the eternal king of the pirates. And to your dream as well," he said. Lucy grinned and the two toasted their glasses, drinking up the white drink. When her drink was finished, Lucy bid the old man farewell and she walked out of the bar. Her search of the execution platform was back on. "Hey, kid." Lucy, now on the verge of climbing the finally found execution platform, looked around and she spotted Smoker. "Oh, hi. Could you wait a minute? I'm kind of busy," she said. The Marine glared at the teen, for he earlier found out that the girl was Monkey D. Lucy, or as some called her, Straw Hat, Lucy. "So you're that girl. That female captain that everyone on the East Blue has been blabbering about." "Straw Hat, Lucy. Well, as a Marine captain, it is my duty to arrest you," said the Marine as large puffs of smoke blew out of his 2 cigars. Lucy gave a nod and she carefully climbed up another railing. "I guess you're right about that but, I'm not letting you arrest me. I'm planning on traveling to the Grand Line and I want to become the first ever queen of the pirates," she said, locking her ankles around the iron beam. Smoker raised his eyebrows. "The queen of the pirates? What kind of nonsense was this?" "Okay, kid, I can see that you might have been dropped on your head as an infant so, why don't we just head off to the Marine base and we'll see if we can get a hold of your parents," said Smoker. He trying to level with this kid because even though he didn't look it, he had a soft spot for kids. Lucy, however, simply shook her head. I ain't coming," she said as she tried to climb up some more when she realized her feet were stuck. With a small scowl, she tugged with all her might. A little too much might, I might add. The pull had freed Lucy, however, it made her fly into the sky, spiraling her out of control. Whoa, screw up, screw up, screw up, screamed the she pirate as she flew halfway across town and she fell on a hard road. With a groan and a rub of her head, Lucy stood up and she decided to try to get back to the execution platform. Little did she know that old enemies that were hot on her trail. Zoro stared at his own reflection of the blade of his new sword. After obtaining Kitsu, the shopkeeper of the sword shop had given him another sword, the Yubashiri. It was a very light katana and Zoro found it as interesting as Kaitsu. Wow, neat swords, Zoro, said Lucy as she suddenly popped out of nowhere. Zoro jumped slightly and he glared at his captain. Sheesh, quit popping up like that, kid, he muttered. Lucy just laughed and she sat next to Zoro, picking up the Yubashiri and looking over it. Zoro shifted a bit at how close Lucy was sitting next to him. He could feel the warmth radiating off her body and could smell her sweet scent. The mixture of vanilla and sea air. Though many would think this scent sounds repulsive, Zoro felt that it was just, well, Lucy. The swordsman's mind went back to the thoughts he had at the sword shop. He could almost see the thoughts he had. Lucy held closely in his arms. Her arms around her neck and her hands lightly gasping his hair. Her chin resting on his shoulder and her lips just an inch under his ear. Those soft and pink lips whispering, Zoro, I. Asterisk grew. Zoro snapped out of his imagination and he sweat dropped at a giggling Lucy, who was rubbing her stomach with her happy-go-lucky smile. Looks like it's time for lunch. Come on, Zoro. I spotted a restaurant just a block away, said the black-haired girl as she handed back the ex-pirate hunter's sword, grabbed his hand, and dragged him to the restaurant. Zoro eyed their entwined hands and he tried to ignore the warmth of her palm. The two walked into the restaurant and they got a table for two. Their waiter came up and he gave them a welcoming smile. Hello, what can I get you two lovebirds? He asked. Zoro glared at him while Lucy, as usual, remained oblivious. 5 plates of meat and some iced tea, please, said the she pirate. 1 plate of sea king meat and some white rice. And a bottle of ale, said Zoro. The waiter wrote down their order and he gave a nod. Okay, I'll be back with your orders soon, he said. The waiter then ducked to Zoro. Cute girlfriend. Want me to get you guys a more private booth? He asked, wiggling his eyebrows. Zoro gave him a, do you want to piss me off? Look, and the waiter hightailed it. Minutes, he came back with their order and a man with a camera. My good man, let's give a complimentary photo, said the waiter as he shoved the two teens together. He made Lucy sit on Zoro's lap and he made Zoro put his arms around Lucy. Lucy gave a smile, finding this like a game, while Zoro tried to look away with his blush. Lucy giggled. Come on, Zoro, please, asked Lucy, batting her eyelashes adorably. Groaning, Zoro sighed in annoyance and he gave a fake half smile while Lucy smiled and nuzzled her head to Zoro's neck. Zoro couldn't stop the faint blush on his face. The camera flashed and the picture came out. When the men finally left, Lucy smiled at the picture. I'm gonna be sure to keep this for a long time, she said. Zoro just shrugged and he took big gulps of his ale. For the time they were eating, they each exchanged at what they did and saw. Lucy told Zoro the stories the old man told her while Zoro told Lucy how he had gotten his 2 new swords. Lucy gave a small burp when she finished her 5th plate of meat. Ah, well, I'm stuffed. Let's pay and get out of here, she said. Zoro nodded as he drank up the last of his drink. Yeah, so, where's the money? He asked. Lucy cocked her head in confusion. What do you mean? I don't have any money. I thought you did, she said. Zoro coughed up a bit of his drink. What, you don't have any? Well, I don't either. How the hell are we supposed to pay for all this? He whispered harshly. Lucy gave a shrug and she suddenly felt something land on the brim of her hat. She leaned her head forward and a small bag of berries landed on the table. Lucy grinned and she turned to the toe-clocked people who had launched the bag. Wow, you guys are so nice. Thanks for paying for us, said Lucy as she bowed her head to the people.
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
Zoro did the same and they walked out of the restaurant. They too walked around a little until they reached a marketplace. They looked at a few sellers before a flower vendor called them over. Ah, I love to see young couples pass this place. Tell you what, your lady can have these beautiful flowers I have on display here, she said. Zoro was going to retort that Lucy was not his lady when it looked like the vendor shut it off, pulling a crown of red flowers with many petals from her cart and taking Lucy's hat off her head, placing the crown there. Ah, perfect. The cosmos are truly your flowers, young lady. What do you think? Young man, doesn't your lady look like a princess? Asked the lady. Lucy grinned at Zoro. Well, do I look like a princess, Zoro? She asked. Normally, Zoro would either give a shrug or he would shout at the flower vendor that Lucy was not his. But, that was proven to be rather difficult since Zoro had to admit, Lucy did look very pretty with those flowers in her hair. Not that she wasn't pretty every day. Zoro then scowled and he looked at the ground, blushing at his thoughts. "Ah, yeah, they look good on you, Lucy," he said. Lucy giggled and the wind suddenly picked up, causing Lucy's hat to slip out of her hands. "Ah, my hat," yelled the onyx-eyed girl as she raced after the hat. Sighing, Zoro followed Lucy, trying to catch up with her as fast as he could. Lucy's straw hat floated higher and higher until it reached the town square, right where the execution platform was. Lucy grinned and she grabbed her hat, stuffing the flowers in her hat and plopping said item back on her head. Lucy then noticed the execution platform and she climbed it up with no hassle at all. Lucy gazed at the perfect view. Wow, this is so cool. To think, 22 years ago, the king of the pirates himself stood on this platform and began the pirate era. This is just, wow, shouted Lucy in amazement as she looked over the view. People began to gather and they wondered why the heck was this girl up there. Only one person didn't see all that surprised. It was an extremely slim woman with gorgeous, ebony black hair and dark green blue eyes. On her head was an all too familiar white cowboy hat. "My, it has been ages, hasn't it, Lucy darling?" called the lady. Everyone turned and every person there was amazed at the beautiful woman. Lucy, on the other hand, crossed her arms in front of her chest with a confused face. "Who the hell are you?" she asked. The woman flipped her hair back. "You don't recognize me, Lucy darling. And here I thought we had a special bond. Yes, I've searched for you for nearly a month now to proclaim me my love for you." Everyone dropped their mouths for a second. Love, holy crap, they thought this story involved no lesbianism, the love that only a mother could wish for. "That's right, I want you to become my daughter, Lucy darling." Everyone gave a sigh of relief. Thank God, there was no lesbianism involved. A sudden explosion came and the buggy pirates appeared, surprising Lucy when they locked her in a headboard jail, Buggy standing next to her with a sword threateningly held at her neck. Lucy looked more bored than scared. "Oh no, please, spare my life. I beg of you," said Lucy in an uninterested and sarcastic tone. This whole thing seemed like a load of crap to her. Buggy glared at her and he stomped his foot on her head. "You rubber brat, that's all you have to say? I'm surprised. Someone with a mouth as big as yours must have a lot of things to say. Come on, there's gotta be something that tiny little brain of yours can't think of," he said mockingly. Lucy took a deep breath and she screamed. "Listen and listen good, I'm the girl who's gonna be the queen of the pirates." Her words echoed everywhere as dark, thunderous clouds began to roll in. "Hell yeah, you are." Everyone turned to see two new people enter the scene. It was Zoro and Sanji. Zoro with his bandana tied around his head and his swords in his hands. Lucy gave a grin. Boy, was she glad to see them. Zoro and Sanji looked mad as hell. For Sanji, he was mad that those idiots locked up Lucy, for he cared about her a ton. The same counted for Zoro, however, he was too prideful to admit it. The two of them charged onto the battle, ready and willing to fight off the pirates. Buggy smirked and he raised his sword in the air. "You buffoons are too late. Say goodbye to your precious captain," he yelled as his sword was about to slash down. At the last seconds, Lucy spoke, an apologetic smile gracing her lips. "Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, Nami, sorry, but I'm dead." Zoro turned his head just as the sword came down. "Lucy, no," he yelled. At the last second, just when the sword was about to slice her neck, a tremendous lightning strike came crashing from the sky and it shocked the platform. It caught on a sapphire blue fire and it slowly went tumbling to the ground. Zoro looked at the wreckage, wondering if a certain captain was okay. The said girl suddenly appeared out of the wreckage, only a few smudges and scratches on her. "Well, that was lucky. Damn, you," muttered Lucy as she felt the heavy weight of Smoker's foot on her head. After escaping the town square, the pirate gang had somehow gotten separated and Lucy and Smoker met again. The two fought against each other and Smoker had shown to be quite strong with the powers of his Eden Devil fruit, the smoke fruit. Smoker pulled out his weapon, a jute with a strange stone called sea stone embedded in it, and he about to strike at her with it when someone grabbed his hand. "Don't even think about it." Smoker turned his head to the owner of the hand. The man was in a green cloak and he had a hood on, only the half of his tanned, tattooed face revealed. Smoker gave a glare. "TCH, so now the government can be at ease. To simply come alone is unlike you, dragon," he said. Lucy fidgeted her head. Who was Smoker talking to? And who was this dragon person? The man known as Dragon simply smirked as a harsh hurricane blew all over town, sending everyone and everything in sight to the air. It even conveniently sent the pirate gang all the way to the Going Merry. To say that this was based on luck would be the understatement of the century. Back in a secluded place in Luge Town, the mysterious man known as Dragon walked down the path where he had saved Lucy. The rain that had started came down in little soft needles and the wind blew lightly around him. He stopped when he found a clump of red cosmos flowers. They were the flowers that had fallen out of Lucy's hat when the hurricane blew over. Dragon picked them up and the corner of his lip went slightly up. "Listen and listen good, I'm the girl who's gonna be the queen of the pirates. Strong ambitions, I always knew you would have those, Lucia. FWAAH Chew." Lucy wiped her nose with the back of her hand as she walked onto the sky deck. Nami, Usopp, and Sanji were in the lounge, trying to warm up, and Lucy had decided to go check on Zoro, who was on watch. The rain was clearing up and Lucy had spotted Zoro lifting weights, shirtless, cue the screaming fangirls. Lucy smiled and she walked over. "Hey, Zoro," she said. The swordsman looked at her and he gave a nod of acknowledgement, turning back to his weightlifting. Lucy noticed that the ex-bounty hunter was unusually silent. He had been this way ever since they left Luge Town and she could feel a cold air go off him. And it wasn't from the watery wind. "What's wrong, Zoro? You've been silent for a long time and you haven't talked to me." "What's up?" asked Lucy. Zoro still had his back turned to her and he was still lifting. He suddenly stopped and he had his head down, his face being shadowed. You're a dumb ass. You nearly got killed today and you didn't do a thing about it when it came to you. You just gave up then and there. That was the most stupidest thing you ever did." Zoro could feel a blazing fire run through his veins and he turned to Lucy, his eyes turning cold and harsh. Lucy flinched. She didn't like this side of Zoro. It wasn't his usual pissed-off mood. Her hand reached for him. "Please, Zoro. Clam down. Why are you so?" Lucy let out a yelp as Zoro grabbed her reaching hand and pulled her to him. She placed her hand on the middle of his pectorals, right where his heart was. Lucy felt a rush of warmth run up her spine into her cheeks as her palm felt Zoro's cold skin and the rough beating of his heart. Zoro looked down at her with a glare of anger and seriousness. "Can you feel that, Captain? This is exactly how fast my heart went when you were going to get killed. When I first saw that you were trapped, I knew I had to be the one to save you. But when you said those damn words," Zoro shook his head and he glared harder. "Do you know how worried I was, Lucy? Do you know how I felt? On that last second, I thought I would lose you. I swear, snarled Zoro, his voice flatting as Lucy wrapped her arms around his neck and pulled his close, her head resting on his chest. Lucy could feel the scar Zoro had received from Mihawk against her cheek and she could feel Zoro's heartbeat ease down. She stood there with him, in soft silence as the rain lit up and the wind calmly blew. Finally, Lucy placed her hand on Zoro's cheek and she looked up at Zoro, her eyes softening. I'm sorry for worrying you, Zoro. I just accepted that I was going to die back there. I never meant for you to get worried," apologized the girl. She looked at his chest and her free hand lightly traced of Zoro's long scar. It made Zoro shiver. "I should have known better. I was worried when it looked like Mihawk killed you. I thought I would never see you again. I thought I lost my best friend." Lucy placed her hands on Zoro's shoulders and she pushed up lightly on her toes, pressing her lips against Zoro's rough cheek. Zoro sighed at the warmth. "I'm sorry, Zoro. I truly am," she murmured against his skin. Zoro could feel his skin tingle at the warmth of her breath and he wrapped his arms around Lucy's waist, placing his hands on the small of her back. "It's all right, Lucy. Just promise me you won't give up that easily, ever again," he said. Lucy rested back on the soles of her feet and she nodded, giving a light smile and pulling off her hat. She then reached into it and she pulled out the picture she and Zoro got in Luge Town. She smiled at it fondly and she smiled at Zoro again. "We'll always be best friends, won't we?" Zoro smiled and he looked at the picture as well. "Yeah, we'll always be friends." Chapter 12, The Test. Which one, red or blue? Obsidian black eyes looked at the two options before them before a nod of the head. Blue. Soft, cinnamon brown eyes blinked before looking at the two colors. "Okay, red it is." The owner of the black eyes flashed in surprise. "Didn't he just say his choice was blue?" "I said blue, not red," said the man. The brown eyes gave an innocent blink. "Yeah, you did. And I picked red because it's the opposite of what you picked," said the voice, which was laced with what could have been confused for the innocence of a child. The man raised his brow in confusion. "Why pick the opposite of my choice?" he asked. The woman smiled at him, holding up the two different colored flowers delicately. "Because I like to hear you choice. It tells me more about you," she said. She then wrapped her arms around the man's broad shoulders and she nuzzled to his chest, a sweet smile on her lips. "I want to know everything about you. I want to see what makes you happy and sad. I want to see what you see." The man's dark eyes flickered like the flame of a fire before his strong arms wrapped around the small frame of the woman's. "You are so unordinary and happy, and I love you for that." The woman giggled and she tucked her head under the man's neck. "And you are so brave, willful, and a bit stubborn, and I love you for that, Dragon." "Need a refill, gent?" Dragon snapped out of his daze and he looked up. The old man of Gold Roger's bar stood behind the counter of the bar with a bottle of ale. Dragon dropped his eyes back to his already full drink. "No, I'm fine, thank you," he muttered quietly. Raoul shrugged and he placed the ale back on its shelf. "Kay, you're a quiet fellow, you know that. You've been staring at that drink for nearly half an hour and you haven't taken one sip. What's the matter? Something on your mind?" asked the older man. Dragon looked at the skylight of the bar, a lost look in his mind. "The past. That's what's troubling me. It seems that it has come back to haunt me. I've made mistakes then and I feel slight regret," said the mysterious man. Raoul picked up a newspaper and he flipped through it. Well, maybe that past of yours is trying to tell you something. You know what they say, in order to see your future, you have to look at the present and the past. They show us what we cannot see with our eyes, said the old man. Dragon was confused. Pardon, he asked, not understanding the older man's words. Rahul looked up from his paper with a wise smile. Gent, there are two ways to look at things in this world. Some things, we can just look. But other things, we must truly see, he said. Dragon's eyes dropped back to his drink. Rahul flipped the pages of his newspaper before smirking at the front page. Straw Hat, Lucy spotted. Strongest pirate of the East Blue appeared in Luge Town. Hey, well, what do you know? That little girl that passed by here was telling the truth. My, what a child. Queen of the pirates, she said, chuckled the bar owner. Dragon gave the corner of his lip a lift. Tell me, do you believe that she can accomplish that? He asked. Rahul gave a shrug. Don't know, gent. The girl looks like she has her mind set to it. That, and she was one of the only few who said Galdi. Roger's name right. What about you? What do you think? He asked. Dragon stared into the golden liquid of his drink, the light pools of the shaking liquid making his eyes resembles another's. I say, if she believes in what she thinks and she is willing to do anything for her ambition, then I am sure she will make it a reality. No one should stop a person from what they believe in. For that, must be the ultimate evil, he said as he raised his glass and took a drink, enjoying the burning liquid running down his throat. As he finished his drink, he looked to the skylight of the bar. He could tell that a storm was coming. Do what you must, Lucia. For if that is what you believe in, then let nothing or no one stop you. Some hot chocolate for my angel from above, Nami. Some hot chocolate for my cutie, Lucy. And some hot chocolate for my desert flower, Vivi. Cooed Sanji as he skipped merrily to each girl, handing them cups of the lukewarm drink. The three girls and the cook were sitting in the lounge of the Going Merry, trying their best to keep warm from the cold weather outside. The ship had been traveling for a few weeks now and many strange things had been happening to them. Meeting a little girl who could talk to animals, a great whale who held the great wish to become a pirate, meeting Vivi and discovering she was the princess of a country known as Alabasta, and learning of the mysterious organization known as Baroque Works, who had their intentions on capturing Vivi. The pirate's job was to make sure that the blue-haired princess was safe. Lucy took a sip of her hot chocolate and she mewed softly. This is the best hot chocolate ever, Sanji. She said happily. The other girls agreed and Sanji did a strange noodle-like dance with hearts in his eyes. Usopp then came in, a small icicle dangling from his nose. Sheesh, the weather out there is unbelievable, he said as poured himself a cup of hot chocolate and took a seat next to Lucy. As he sneezed off his nose icicle, Vivi gave a light giggle. I must say, this weather is actually quite interesting to me. We only have summer back in Alabasta, she said as she gave a light shiver and pulled her coat close to body. Lucy finished the rest of her drink and she looked around, noticing that someone was missing. Hey, where's Zoro? I haven't seen his since breakfast, she said, looking around. Nami placed her mug on the table. He's in the crow's nest on watch duty. I told his he could bring down the bears he owes me from Luge Town by a bit if he took my watch. She said. Lucy nodded and she propped her elbows on the table with her head on her hands. She only had this kind of posture when her mind was deep thought, which was rare. She didn't know why but, she had been suddenly acting odd around Zoro. Whether they were simply passing each other or sitting together, Lucy felt a sudden feeling taking over her. Her cheeks would go red and her heart would skip a beat. If he called her for something, she would be there a second later. The captain had no idea what was wrong with her. She had been feeling this way ever since her talk with the swordsman after they left Luge Town. Lucy groaned and she hit her head against the table, her brain racking. Lucy, are you okay? Asked Usopp, giving his captain an odd look. Everyone else did the same. Lucy rested her head against the table and she only moved her eyes up. I don't think I'm okay. I really don't know, said the girl honestly as her eyes shifted back to the wooden surface of the table. Nami felt slight sympathy for the girl before her. You want to talk about it? You know, to get it off your chest? Asked the orange-haired thief. Lucy looked up and nodded. She then looked at the wood again. Yeah, but can I just talk with you and Vivi only? I only want to talk with you guys, she said. Nami nodded and she looked at the other men. Guys, do you mind? She asked. The two boys nodded and they walked out of the room. Once they were out, Nami walked over to the girl younger than her and she sat next to her. Okay, Lucy, what's up? She asked. Lucy sighed and she sat up, taking off her hat and looking at it. Well, ever since we left Luge Town, I've been acting really weird around Zoro. Everything feels weird, she said. Vivi tilted her head. Weird how? She asked. Lucy placed her hat on her lap. Well, whenever I see him or pass him, my cheeks feel warm and my heart goes faster. And when he's close, the teen's cheeks suddenly went aglow and she smiled slightly. I always feel happy all of a sudden. Like everything feels much safer when he's around. Lucy looked at the girls near her with curious eyes. What does it mean? Why do you guys think I'm acting this way? I'm not getting sick, am I? Nami and Vivi looked at each other with knowing eyes and smiles. Nami placed her hand on the onyx-eyed girl's shoulder. Don't worry, Lucy. You're not getting sick. It's normal for you to feel this way now. To tell the truth, I'm kind of surprised that you're feeling this way, she said. Lucy gave her head a tilt. It's normal, she asked. Vivi gave a giggle and she nodded her head. Yeah, Lucy, what you're experiencing now is what is commonly known as a crush, she said. Lucy blinked and scratched the back of her head. She knew what a crush was. She just never thought about having one before. It was alien to her. She had never, not once in her life, had a crush before. I have a crush on Zoro, she asked, trying to understand the whole thing. Nami nodded and gave a light smile. Looks like it. As crazy and strange as it sounds, it looks like you have a crush on him. Really unexpected, huh? Asked the navigator. Lucy nodded and she tapped her feet together lightly. So, what do I do about it? I like these weird feelings but, I don't want to get all funny the whole time I'm around Zoro. What do I do? She asked, looking at the older girls. Vivi placed her hand on her cheek and she thought for a moment. Well, why don't you see if he likes you back, she suggested. Lucy looked at her with curiosity. How do I do that? She asked. It was Nami's turn to think for a while before she snapped her fingers and she walked over to the still warming pot of hot chocolate. She grabbed a mug from the cupboards and she poured the warm drink into the mug. She then handed the mug to Lucy. Go bring him some hot chocolate. Talk to him and see if you can get him to talk, she said. Lucy looked down at the hot drink. Then, what do I do then? She asked. Vivi stood up and she patted the pirate's shoulder. Do what you usually do. Talk with him and see how he reacts, she suggested. Lucy still kept her eyes on the drink. But how will I know that he likes me back? She asked. Well, when he holds you close to him, that's a good sign. And when he speaks softly to you, too. And also, there's one surefire sign to know that he likes you, said Nami, suddenly having a soft look in her eyes. Lucy cocked her head in confusion and Nami giggled at the girl's innocence. The one surefire sign to know when he likes you, is when he kisses you. When it feels so nice and right, that you just can't fight back the urge to kiss him back. Lucy looked at the drink in her hand before grinning and nodding. Okay, I'll do that. Thanks guys, she called as she trotted out of the room. Nami smiled at Lucy's girly behavior. It was very cute to see her captain act this cutely. Nami, Lucy forgot to bring a coat. She'll freeze outside, said Vivi. Nami looked at the princess mischievously, her memory recalling that Zoro had bought a coat with him when he left to take watch. I know, she said simply, a bit of giggle in her tone. Saint Street stupid G girl. Acking me D do her D da damn work. Zoro's teeth chattered harder than castanets and his body sought for the desperate warmth of the inside of the ship. After the stupid girl had made him take her watch, he was slowly starting to literally freeze his butt off because of the weather. Snow was flaking its way to the sky and the cold wind of the sea was not assisting either. Zoro clenched his jaw to stop his rhythmic teeth and he pulled his overcoat closer to him. Oh how he wished for some kind of warmth. Zoro, I brought ya hot chocolate. Zoro looked around and he spotted the familiar happy face of his captain, one hand holding the rail of Crow's Nest while the other holding a mug of steaming liquid. Lucy swung her legs over and she squished herself on the opposite side of Zoro, holding out the mug to Zoro. Here, you must be freezing, she said, her eyes giving their innocent glint. Zoro cocked his brow before accepting the drink, taking a sip of it and feeling warmed up from the inside. He noticed that Lucy was only in her vest, shorts, sandals, and her signature straw hat, which was gathering its own flakes of frozen water. Wasn't she cold? Was she so strong that her devil fruit powers gave her an immunity to freezing weather? Lucy, aren't you freezing? You're wearing clothes that people would usually wear in the summer, said the swordsman. Lucy gave her first mate a confused look. Cold? What do you mean by cold? She asked. She paused for a second. Quote. Yikes. It's cold, she yelled, suddenly shivering and rubbing her arms frantically against her elbows. Zoro sighed. He should have known that Lucy not only had a slow mind but a slow body temperature as well. He could see the girl's body going blue and that her body was shivering quickly. He knew that she could get sick from this. But he had nothing to help her keep warm. Except for his own coat. Zoro sighed. He was going to kick himself for this tomorrow. He unzipped his coat and he held it slightly open. Get in, Captain. Nami and the crab cook will probably kill me if you get sick, he muttered. Lucy blinked and she shivered, not getting what Zoro was implying. Well, when he holds you close to him, that's a good sign. Lucy remembered Nami's words as she grinned her mind. With her now real grin showing on her lips, Lucy crawled over and she sat on Zoro's lap, snuggling into his chest as Zoro zipped up his coat once more till it reached the girl's neck. Lucy wrapped her arms around Zoro's torso and she pressed her cheek against Zoro's warm chest. Zoro placed his sleeved arms around his captain and he looked up at the snowing sky. Lucy closed her eyes in pleasure as her body was becoming warm by Zoro's body heat. Zoro's so warm, mused the girl as she snuggled further into the swordsman's chest. Zoro looked down at the teen and he couldn't help but smile at her content face. It was times like these that he didn't mind being under the command of a dippy girl like Lucy. Sure, she could be a little annoying and crazy, but there were times when the girl was sweet, kind, and harmless. Zoro rested his head on top of the girl's head and he could smell the faint aroma of Lucy's scent. The very scent of vanilla that drove him to nirvana. Zoro's eyes drifted closed, feeling comfortable despite the little space in the crow's nest. "We've come a long way, huh, Captain?" Zoro nearly purred his words. Lucy's eyes opened slightly and she gave a small nod. So much has happened. We have a crew, we have a ship, and we're protecting a princess against a secret organization. As scary as it sounds, I really like it, Zoro. I'm not afraid of Baroque works. Because I have one thing that they could never have," whispered the teen. Zoro pushed Lucy away a little with one of his slender brows arched. "And what do you have that they could never have?" he asked in an almost whisper. "And when he speaks softly to you, too." One of Lucy's hands slipped out of Zoro's coat and it gently caressed Zoro's rough cheek. Zoro closed his eyes again and Lucy went half-lidded. They don't have you, Zoro. I will never let them take you away from me," she whispered. Zoro could smell Lucy's warm breath and he was drawn to it like a bee to a flower. With his eyes still closed, Zoro held Lucy's hand where it was and his head ducked down closer to his captain's face. Lucy's eyes nearly fell shut. "And I will never let them take you from me, Captain." Zoro's words that were warm to the touch dusted the onyx-eyed girl's cheeks as he came closer, their lips closing in. "The one surefire sign to know when he likes you, is when he kisses you." The boat suddenly gave a violent jerk and Lucy's hat flew right off her head. Lucy snapped out of her daze and she wrenched herself out of Zoro's coat. Zoro gave a grunt of surprise as his face met wood. Lucy ignored him and she looked around frantically for her hat. She spotted the straw garment flying a few feet away and without a second thought, she jumped for it. "Ah!" yelled Lucy as her hands missed the hat and she began falling. She failed and screamed as she plunged into the freezing cold water. Zoro stood up and he gasped, his eyes noticing the popping bubbles of the surface. "Lucy!" he yelled as he jumped off the crow's nest and he made a mad dash for the water. "Zoro! What's going on?" asked Usopp as he and Sanji came running over when they heard Lucy scream. Zoro ignored them as he yanked off his overcoat and kicked off his boots. With one great jump, he dived into the ice-cold water. Zoro's bones went stone as the cold water surrounded him, but he had more important things to think about now. He held his breath as his eyes searched the freezing water until he spotted the familiar mop of black tendrils. With not a second thought, Zoro swam as fast as he could to his sinking captain and he grabbed her by her arms, swimming the both of them back to surface. Zoro gasped for air and his teeth went back to chattering. He held Lucy's head up by one hand and he shook the girl with his other hand. "Lucy, Lucy, damn it, quit playing around and wake up," he yelled as he shook her. Lucy made no move and she went limp like a rag doll. Zoro's eyes widened, panic showing in his forest green eyes. His captain wasn't breathing. "Zoro, quick, get Lucy up here. Hurry, before the current comes in." Zoro looked to his side and he saw the rest of the crew frantically waiting for him to return. Without a moment to lose, he swam his way back to the ship and he hefted Lucy over his shoulder and he climbed up the rope the crew sent over. Once he was on the ship, he placed Lucy gently on the floor, and he tried to remember the rules to CPR. Using what he already knew, he closed Lucy's nose and he clamped his mouth to Lucy's, breathing in a large breath of air. He repeated the act several times, hoping and thinking, "Wake up, Captain. Wake up, Captain. Wake up, Captain. Wake up." Lucy's eyes shot open and she sat up, coughing up seawater and shivering like mad. She wrapped her arms around herself and she closed her eyes shut, still trembling. Everyone huddled around her and Nami checked to make sure the young girl was okay. "She looks fine. Freezing and coughing, but not sick," said the orange-haired girl. Lucy opened her eyes and she looked to Zoro. Her eyes went half-closed and she reached for the green-haired samurai. "Warm, Zoro, warm, hold me," she whispered, almost looking like a child W-nating their favorite toy back. Nami looked at Zoro with a look of bewilderment before nodding her head. "Yeah, Zoro, got take Lucy to her room and make sure she gets warmed up. We'll be in the lounge," she said as she pushed everyone into the lounge in quick steps. Zoro cocked his eyebrow, suspicious of the once thief's intentions. The shuddered breath of the shaking Lucy snapped Zoro out of his look and the swordsman reached for the girl, picking her up bridal style. Lucy wrapped her arms around Zoro's neck and she tucked her head under Zoro's neck, already feeling warmed up by Zoro. The swordsman shivered at the girl's cold touch but he ignored it and he walked to the inside of the ship. He stopped when he spotted Lucy's hat on the floor and he picked it up with one hand, placing it on Lucy's head, right where it belonged. Zoro walked into the ship and he walked down a few hallways until he reached his captain's room. He opened the door carefully and he closed it behind him with the kick of his foot. He walked over to Lucy's bed and he laid her on the bed. "I'm going to go change, you better do the same," he said. Before he could even take one step, he felt a hand grab his own. Zoro turned and he looked at his now entwined hand with Lucy's. Said girl was giving him a longing look. Promise you'll come back?" she asked in a hoarse voice. Zoro blinked in surprise before nodding. Lucy gave a small smile before releasing his hand. With another look into those perfect black eyes, the man walked out of his room and he changed into new clothes. He walked back to Lucy's room and now saw that the girl was in a curled-up ball, now in a light blue, long-sleeved pajama-like robe and sleeping. Zoro slowly walked in and he carefully undid the sheets of the bed, picking up the sleeping Lucy and tucking her in the bed. He noticed that she was murmuring something in her sleep. It was soft and sweet, yet it had a slight tone of melancholy. "Shanks, Makino, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Vivi, Zoro, Zoro," the girl whispered, her murmuring turning into a sweet tune. "Flower, gleam and glow. Let your power shine. Make the clock reverse. Bring back what once was mine." Lucy suddenly looked a little distressed, her soft features crinkling with worry. "Heal what has been hurt. Change the fates, design. Save what has been lost. Bring back what once was mine." Lucy's features worried more. What once was mine? Zoro placed his hand carefully on the girl's cheek, his thumb stroking her cheekbone softly. Lucy's worry disappeared and a face of content replaced it. She cuddled into the bed with a happy sigh. Zoro let a smile on his lips, his eyes suddenly drawing to her lips. Even in that frantic state of bringing air into his captain's lungs, Zoro had taken notice that her lips were incredibly soft. He also had the faint taste of strawberry on his lips, not the taste of meat like he had expected. With another light smile, Zoro's hand lightly caressed the girl's cheek once more before he walked slowly out of the room. Zoro opened the door and he looked back at the girl in the bed. "Who knows, Captain? Maybe, one day, when this world isn't how it is now, you and I can, if you would like to, I hope that you will be by my side. Someday, somehow," thought the once bounty hunter as he slowly closed the door. The snow outside gently glittered outside the window, as if the sign of a good omen. Disclaimer: this story do not belong to me. The author is Queen of the Pirates by Mustar0013. Chapter 13, Chopper, the Blue-Nosed Reindeer. Someone was watching him. Someone with angry and betrayed-looking eyes. Eyes that would usually hold happiness and cheerfulness. But no, these eyes were mad. No other emotion involved. Zoro paused from his intense weightlifting and he looked from the corner of his eye. It was Lucy. Her eyebrows were drawn forward and her dark eyes were filled with anger. Her lips formed a pout. Not the adorable one she would use to look cute. It was one that showed disappointment. Zoro raised his eyebrow. Why was she looking at him like that? He then saw his captain's gaze move to his feet. He followed it. He wasn't wearing his boots, showing his newly wrapped bandages tied around his ankles. He had gained them from Little Garden, an island the Going Merry had docked on a few days ago. The island was inhabited by dinosaur-like creatures and giants. Many, big giants. But the giants weren't what they had to worry about. It was the Baroque Works agents that had happened to be on that island as well. Zoro had a run-in with one of the agents, known as Mr. 3, and he had almost cut off his own legs. The crew had luckily gotten off the island and Zoro only had slightly severe injuries. Lucy had been giving him glares ever since they had left. Finally, it seemed that Zoro had enough of his captain's constant glowering. With a grunt, he turned to Lucy. "Oi, what's with you glaring at me? What did I do?" he asked. Lucy crossed her arms and she tipped her head down, her eyes now hidden behind her hat. For a while, she didn't say anything, the ripples of waves and the calls of seagulls being the only sounds. Finally, Lucy looked up. "You nearly cut off your legs, why?" she asked, her voice a mixture of anger and curiously. Zoro walked over to the jug of water he had on the floor and he took a swing of it, scooping up a handful of water and splashing it on his face, neck, and bare chest. Lucy gulped as she watched the water give his scarred, bronze skin a godlike glow. "To save you. I still don't see why." Zoro was cut off when Lucy stood up and she walked right up to his face, her frown set back on. "How is that supposed to save me, Zoro? With you cutting off your legs, you wouldn't be able to try to beat Mihawk again. Why did you give up on your dream?" she yelled. Zoro glared back, not believing how ridiculous this girl was acting. "I didn't give up on my dream. Listen to my words carefully, idiot. I did it for you, and if saving you meant losing my own legs, I would have taken it. God damn it, I care about you, you moron," he yelled. Lucy flinched and she took a step back. Even though Zoro had said it in a yell, he had just said that he cared about her. That he had risked the loss of his own legs, for her safety. Zoro was shaking with anger and his breathing went heavy. He then saw the look of fright in Lucy's eyes and he realized he was scaring her. Zoro placed his hand over his face, trying not to look at Lucy's eyes. "Sorry, I shouldn't have yelled. You were worried and, I'm just sorry, Lucy," he said. Lucy noted the regret in the swordsman's voice and she walked toward him slowly. She carefully took the hand on his face and she brought it down to her level, kissing his knuckles. Zoro felt his anger drain when he felt the warmth of Lucy's hand and the softness of her lips. "I'm sorry for yelling, too, Zoro. I just don't want to lose you. Remember what you said when we met?" she asked. Zoro's mind went into a small puzzle. Lucy looked up to him, her eyes staring directly into his. You said that if something ever stopped you from becoming the world's greatest swordsman, then I would have to take full responsibility for it and apologize. I want to make sure that you fulfill your dream. 'Cause you see, Lucy curled her fingers around Zoro's hand and she tilted her head. I could never fulfill my dream if I can't help you fulfill yours, she said. Zoro stared at Lucy for a long time, before he placed his free hand on Lucy's shoulder and he pulled his entwined one away from Lucy's, guiding it to Lucy's short hair and stroking her raven locks. I understand, he said softly, his hand moving in small, fluid strokes. Lucy's eyes went half-lidded as she felt a gentle blush glow on her cheeks. You do, she whispered, her hands reaching and pressing Zoro's chest, right where his heart was. Zoro felt his own face heat up at the touch of the girl's tender hands and he brought his head to Lucy's, their noses barely touching. He looked deeply into her eyes, searching for her innocent yet adventurous soul. Lucy blushed more and her thoughts were going fuzzy. Is he going to kiss me? Oh please, if he will, it will be just as good as finding the One Piece, she thought as Zoro slowly moved his face forward. Ah, someone help. Something's wrong with Nami. Lucy and Zoro snapped out of their dazes and they looked over, seeing that Vivi and her pet spotted bill duck, Karu, standing over a fainted Nami. The two soon-to-kissing couple looked at each other and blushed faintly before running over to see what was wrong with their navigator. So, she has a fever. Vivi nodded as she placed a damp paper towel on Nami's head. The redhead didn't look so good. Her cheeks and ears were flushed with red, her skin was paling, and she was sweating uncontrollably. She was trebling and her breathing was labored. Vivi had helped her to her bed and everyone, counting out Zoro for some odd reason, was gathered around her bed, Vivi on one side while Sanji on the other, holding Nami's hand, looking worriedly over the girl. Yes, it's due to the climate she's been exposed to. Because the weather changes so often, her immune system must be confused, causing her to obtain a virus, said Vivi as she took out the thermometer she had given Nami earlier and looking it over. She gasped. Dear gosh, her temperature is 104. That's not good. She could die if her fever got any higher. She exclaimed. Oh boy, she just let chaos blow right in, did she? Wah, Nami's gonna die. Help her, help her, help her, yelled Lucy as she shook Vivi with tears in her eyes. Usopp and Karu were running around, yelling at the top of their lungs like maniacs and Sanji was starting to bawl, too. Oh, Nami, my light, you just can't die. You are my world, my everything, please don't die, cried Sanji as he held Nami's hand. Everyone fell silent when Nami gave a weak cough. I'll be cough, I'll be fine. It's just, heat stroke, I bet. Besides, we need to get you to Alabasta, Vivi. If we don't, then the whole kingdom will come to a collapse, coughed the navigator. She then gave a light smile to Sanji. There's no need to worry about me. I'll be, she gave coughing fit and she fell back to her bed, her breathing becoming more heavier. Sanji frowned and he tucked the blanket around the brown-eyed thief. Usopp, Lucy, I want you guys to make sure we head to the nearest island. We need to find a doctor for Nami. And fast, he said coolly. Sanji then turned to Lucy. Is that all right, Lucy? He asked. Lucy gave a nod. Right, let's go, Usopp, she said as she and the long-nosed man began to walk out of the room before a giant shift made the boat go rocking. The pirates on board gave yells as the boat went shifting and rocking. What the hell, yelled Usopp. He and Lucy wasted no time as the two of them raced up the steps and all the way to the top deck. The two of them gasped for two reasons. 1, it was snowing again. What the heck was up with the weather around here? And 2, a giant ship about the size of the giants they saw in Little Garden was floating before theirs. Shit, was all Zoro muttered. Sanji could hear the thundering of footsteps from the sky deck and he decided to go check what was up. He left Vivi in charge of Nami and he raced up to the deck. He stopped when he reached the deck and saw the whole ordeal. He reached for his pocket, pulled out his box of cigarettes, lit one of them, and he breathed in the nicotine. So, what's up? He asked calmly. Well, we're under attack, and it's snowing, said Lucy casually as 1,000 men pointed rifles at her, Usopp, Zoro, and Sanji himself. Well yeah, the guns pointing at my face gave that away. So, what's the deal? Asked the blonde cook. A sudden thump rattled the ship and a giant, heavy man now stood. His hair was untamed and deep blue and people could have confused him for a hippopotamus. He took a huge bite out of the leg of mutton he was eating. You call yourselves pirates, without having a decent amount of a crew. How disappointing, said the man as he ate both his mutton and sword. The 4 pirates gave looks of disgust and made light, blah, noises at the back of their throats. Okay, even I'll admit I would eat raw meat. But a sword, gross, shouted Lucy with a light barfing motion. Everyone else silently agreed with their captain's statement. The heavy man, known as Wapple, soon started consuming the ship. Now that got Lucy mad. No way was she going to let that bastard eat her ship. That was unforgivable. A fight soon started, Lucy with her rubber powers, Zoro with his sword skills, Sanji with his footwork that would make Jackie Chan think twice, and Usopp, well, he just hid. Lucy soon found herself cornered, well, more eaten by Wapol, since he had consumed the munch fruit. But the pirate had countered by giving the big palooka the old, gum pistol. And sent him flying through the sky. Wapol's crew soon went off to save the heavy man and things went back to normal. Well, as normal as things could get. Sanji, remember when you said we have to find people on this island? Yeah, found 'em. The Straw Hat Pirates found themselves to be, once again, pointed at with rifles. The ship had just reached a snow island and they soon found themselves, as said earlier, by people. Only, they didn't look all too happy to see the newcomers. A man came out of the crowd. He was tall with gray-black hair and dark eyes. He seemed like the leader. Pirates, your kind is not welcomed here. Leave or else, he yelled. Sanji made a step to explain their situation when one of the men shot at him. Sanji, yelled Vivi as she ran forward and blocked the shot. All 4 Straw Hats watched in horror as Vivi fell to the ground with a thud. Her body gave no movement. Vivi, yelled Lucy in anguish. She glared at all the people on the island and she was ready to use a gum pistol when she felt a hand grab hers. She looked down and saw that it was Vivi, who was still alive. I'm fine, Lucy. The bullet just grazed my arm. Please, we can't start a fight. Not when Nami has a fatal fever, said the princess. Lucy stared at Vivi's wounded arm before nodding. Yeah, you're right, she said, before bowing to the people. I'm sorry for my outburst. Just please, you must help us find a doctor. My friend is really sick and she could die if she gets any worse. You just gotta help us. You just gotta, said Lucy in a nearly begging tone. The man was silent for a while before nodding his head. Fine, follow us, he said as he turned and walked. Lucy nodded and she turned to her crew. Okay, guys. Me, Usopp, Sanji, and Vivi will take Nami with these guys. Zoro, you and Karu watch the ship, alright? She asked. Her friends nodded and Sanji went to grab Nami. Zoro took off his boots and he checked over his feet. They seemed to have healed. He looked at Lucy. Say, Lucy, he said. Lucy looked at him. What? She asked. Zoro held one of his feet up. Make sure to be careful. Remember what we promised, he said. Lucy blinked before smiling. Don't worry. I bet there's a doctor in the place we're going. What more else do we have to do? Okay, so there's a lot to do. Lucy winced as snow and hail blew in her face and she held both Sanji and Nami in her arms as she climbed up a steep mountain. The most craziest things had happened. Turns out that Wapol guy was back and then there was a witch doctor she had to visit in order to get Nami better, and then there was these huge rabbits who knocked out Sanji. Well, don't ask about that last one, okay? Lucy bit at her tongue as sheets of snow came pouring on her. During her fight with the giant rabbits, she had lost the coat she had brought over. She could feel her body numbing up and the core of her teeth giving a stinging tickle. Her skin was going blue to purple and her fingers began bleeding from the rough climbing she was doing. Every inch of her exposed skin was scratched deeply and they were close to getting infected. Her nerves screamed for her to stop but she refused. She was going to get Sanji and Nami to safety. She would not lose them. She would not. Finally, just when it seemed like Lucy was about to faint, she had reached the top of the mountain. She had finally made it. The onyx-eyed girl fell to her knees and she gave a sigh of relief. She then fell forward as she felt exhaustion take over her. Finally, breathed the girl tiredly as sleep took over her. She didn't even wake up when a large beast walking on 2 legs walked over to her and picked her and the 2 others up. Nami stirred as she slowly began to wake up. She groaned when a bright light hit her eyes and black dots spotted her vision. She blinked her eyes slowly and she wiped her sweaty forehead. She sat up slowly from the bed she was laying on and she looked around. She was in a big room that had a few desks and bookcase around and there were some medical supplies around, too. She took note of 2 things. 1, she felt less hot, meaning her fever had probably gone down a bit. And 2, there was a strange creature hiding behind a doorway. Only, he was hiding the wrong way. The creature looked like a little reindeer calf that stood at 2 feet. He had light brown fur with 2 big innocent dark brow eyes and a usually blue nose. He wore a fuzzy pink top hat with a sideways medical cross and maroon purple shorts. He shook at the sight of Nami and he had flinched when she sat up, causing him to fall over with a shrill yell. Chopper, keep it down in there, yelled a new voice. The owner of the voice came into the room. It was an old woman with long, light gray hair and black sunglasses. She wore young-looking clothes and she looked cocky. Very cocky. The woman walked over to Nami with a bottle of whiskey in her hand and she placed her free hand on the thief's forehead. Nami didn't move. Your fever's gone down quite a lot. That's a good sign, said the old woman as she took a drink of her whiskey. Nami nodded and she then remembered something. Wait, 2 other people came up here with me. Are they alright? She asked, wondering what had happened to Lucy and Sanji. The old woman patted her shoulder. Calm down, they're fine. They're both sleeping in the other room. Strong people, they are, said the old woman as she suddenly pulled up Nami's shirt a bit, showing Nami the purplish bite on her stomach. This was the cause of your fever. You must have got bitten by a Kesha tick. Good thing that girl got you here earlier. If this bite was ignored, you would have died in 2 days, said the lady. Nami gasped and the old woman laid her down and tucked her to bed. Even though your fever's gone down, you still need to rest up before you fully recover. No getting up, or else I'll make sure you stay here longer, understood? She threatening in a sugar-sweet tone. Nami wanted to argue but her still burning fever said otherwise. She nodded and she soon fell back to sleep. Oh yes, my name is Dr. Kurha. But you may call me Doctorine. Feel well, said Doctorine as the redhead fell to sleep. Meanwhile, Chopper was helping out with Lucy and Sanji in the other room. He had checked to see that he had tied on Lucy's bandages good and tight. The raven-haired girl had gauze wrapped around her arms, legs, feet, neck, and her exposed abdomen and chest. Chopper had unbuttoned Lucy's vest to make sure that her scratched skin would not get irritated by the fabric of her shirt. The pirate girl laid on one of the cots with a blanket covering her from the waist down and sleeping peacefully. Sanji laid on another cot with bandages of his own and he was sleeping, too. Chopper watched the both of them. First Sanji, then Lucy. He had remembered when he had brought the girl and her friends to the front yard of Doctorine's castle. Though the girl was hurt, the straw hat-wearing pirate had said something that struck his heart dead on. A few hours earlier, she climbed this mountain with her bare hands. That's a 3,000-mile climb. And look, she's on the verge of having frostbite. Get her into a hot bath. We need to get her warm. Chopper nodded as he watched Lucy twitch and shudder on the patio. Her skin was plum purple and her scratches were scabbed over and infected. Her dry blood stained over her clothes and skin. She was giving shaky breathes. Chopper looked over Sanji. His condition was far less worse than Lucy's but he was still scratched and hurt badly. This one has lost a lot of blood and he has several broken ribs. He also had a spinal fissure, he said. Doctorine nodded and she picked up Nami. This one seems to have a far more worse condition than the both of them. We need to get her with some antibiotics or else she'll die, she said. The old lady suddenly felt ice-cold fingers grab her arm. She looked down and saw it was Lucy, whose scratches had opened and started to bleed. The girl was giving her a death glare. Doctorine gave a frown. Don't worry, girlie. I'll take care of feces too real good. You have nothing to worry about, she said. Lucy looked at her with clattering teeth and a blue face. Th, those two are my FRFR friends, why you better take go od care of them, LLL lady, she growled with her chatting voice. Chopper gasped when he saw the seriousness flash over her black eyes. Doctorine nodded and Lucy collapsed back to the snow, too exhausted to stay awake. Chopper just stared. Present. So hungry, I could eat a reindeer. Chopper flinched and gasped as Lucy suddenly woke up with half-lidded, hungry eyes. He took steps back from the drooling girl before he saw that Sanji was awake, too. Only he wanted to make reindeer fricassee out of him. Chopper let out a yell as the two pirates chased him around. Doctorine and Nami watched the trio run by crazily. Lucy and Sanji threw the redhead quick waves as they continued to trail Chopper with fast haste. Say, who is that little reindeer that those two are chasing? Asked Nami as the sounds of crashes, screams, and yells of, get back here, passed by them. Doctorine gave a smirk. I was wondering when you were going to ask that. His name is Chopper. His full name is Tony Chopper but, the old doctor's smirk turned into a small smile. He's always been Chopper to me. He's a reindeer who's eaten the human fruit and he's an excellent doctor, she said. Nami could see something flicker in her wise eyes for a second. It almost held, slight sadness. Doctorine then told Nami the Chopper's story. About he had became what he is today. When Chopper was born in his herd, he was instantly made as an outcast because of his blue nose. When he had eaten the human fruit, that only made matters worse. He was kicked out of his herd and he tried to cope with humans. That didn't work out so well either since he looked more like a monster on two kegs than a human. He was then found by an old quack of a doctor named Dr. Hiralik, who taught the little reindeer what he knew. Chopper had grown very attached to the doctor and he saw him as a father. Unfortunately, the two's times together ended when Dr. Hiralik was killed at the explosion of Drum Castle. There, Doctorine had taken care of Chopper and taught him all she knew. Chopper still had a hard time trusting humans and he was hurting inside. Nami was shocked, to say the least. FWWWAAHHH. Get away. Stay away, yelled Chopper as Lucy and Sanji chased him again and they passed Nami and Doctorine. The witch doctor gave a sigh and she pulled out the mace that stuck on her wall. Pardon me, I have these two to tend to. Come here, you idiots. You need more bed rest, she yelled as she now chased Lucy and Sanji. The two healthy pirates gave yells as they were chased and Chopper gave a yell as he was still chased by Lucy and Sanji. Nami's sweat dropped and she tried to get off her bed when Chopper ran back to the room. He seemed to have lost Lucy and Sanji. The little doctor looked around and he gave a sigh. Phew, I lost them, for now at least, he said to himself. Nami blinked before smiling sweetly at him. Thanks for helping me. You're the one who treated me, right? She asked. Chopper blinked and started before giving a not too succeeding glare. Shut up. Oh wait, I mean no shut up. I don't need praise but that was super nice, though I mean, shish. yelled the reindeer with mixed emotions. Nami's sweat dropped again. He sure was a tough little bugger, huh? Nami watched as Chopper calmed down and he warily walked over to her. He gave her a light poke in the arm with his hoof. So, you guys are pirates, right? He asked, poking her arm again. Nami nodded. Yes, we are, she said. She suddenly gained an idea. Say, why don't you come with us? Be a doctor on our ship, she asked. The reindeer gasped and he stepped back. No way, I can never. I don't belong on a ship. I have a blue nose and I'm not normal. No way, he yelled, shaking his head fast. To tell the truth, he wanted to join. He would jump at the chance to join the crew. But Ho could not. He could never. Meet, called Lucy as she and Sanji suddenly came chasing after Chopper again. Chopper gave a yell as he was chased by the two pirates, Doctorine chasing close by. Nami, for the third time today, sweat dropped. Reindeer guy, where are you? Come on, join our crew. I'm sorry I tried to eat you, called Lucy as she searched for Chopper in the castle. She had somehow lost Sanji and Doctorine and she was now in the ground level of the witch doctor's castle. She opened one door and she grinned at the sight of fruit. Awesome, I'm starved, she yelled happily as she trotted over and started chewing on the food. Chopper stood behind a crate and she watched Lucy eat. This girl acted like she didn't have a care in the world. As if all of the world's evils meant nothing to her. Chopper slowly came out of his hiding place. So, you're really a pirate? He asked. Lucy nodded as she ate. And I love being one, she said. Chopper raised an eyebrow. But, you're a girl. Don't most girls hate pirates? He asked. Lucy gulped down an apple and she gave her trademark grin. Not this girl. I wanted to be a pirate for as long as I can remember. Besides, it doesn't matter if I'm a girl or not. Just because I'm different, it doesn't stop me from doing what I want to do. It won't stop me from fulfilling my dream, she said as she took another bite of the fruit. Dream? Asked Chopper with interest. Lucy nodded and she finished the last bits of fruit. Yeah, to become the queen of the pirates. If you ask me, Lucy's grin formed into a smile and she patted her straw hat. To become the queen of the pirates is the ultimate freedom. That's what I want, freedom, she said. Chopper stared at Lucy for a long time. Her words kept going over and over in her head. She didn't care what people thought. If she was a girl, then that was that. She would be a pirate and she would let no one stop her. She would never forget her dream. Chopper was shocked, to say the least. His whole life, he had been outcast. But when with Dr. Hirolik and Doctorine, he had felt, he could be himself, no matter what others thought. A sudden tremor brought him back to the real world and Lucy looked out a window. Aw, man, it's that weird Hypo-Pippa whatever the hell his name was. Yelled Lucy. Chopper looked out the window and he gasped, too. It was Wapol. He used to be the king of Drum Castle. Chopper felt his nostrils flare. He laughed when Dr. Hirolik was killed. He would pay. Hey, big mouth, you're nothing but a fake. Everyone had froze and they looked up to the top of Drum Castle. Lucy stood there, scratched up a bit and standing next to Dr. Hirolik's Jolly Roger. It was a skull and crossbones with hoof-shaped sakura petals. It was intense battle that had occurred around the castle and the people in the castle tried their best to defend the monument. Wapol had been proven to be quite strong with his munch-munch devil fruit powers. He had even transformed into a house-like creature with guns sticking out. Chopper had shown to be strange as well because of his devil fruit powers and with the power of a small medicine ball called the Rumble Ball. It gave him advanced abilities to change him into incredible forms. Everyone had suddenly stopped when the she captain had yelled. You have no idea what the wave of a Jolly Roger is. It's more than just some decoration. If you think it's just that, then you're dumber than you look. Yelled the onyx-eyed girl. Wapol glared at her. Dumb, you little bitch. You'll pay for that, he yelled. Lucy glared back, her short dark hair flying wildly with the wind and snow. Wapol snarled as he shot a cannonball at Lucy from one of the May cannons on his body and it hit the girl directly. Everyone gasped as the smoke from the attack cleared and Lucy still stood, holding up the nearly ripped Jolly Roger in the air. Lucy looked more mad than ever. You will never understand. I don't know who this Jolly Roger originated from but, it's obvious that it has a lot of meaning. This flag means the world to Chopper and Doctorine. That's why. Lucy looked down at Wapol with jet black anger. I will never let a bastard like you destroy it. The skull on this flag is a symbol of faith. If you destroyed it, then the person WHO made this would die from being forgotten. She screamed into the icy wind. Chopper blinked. He was in one transformation called Heavy Point and he was touched by Lucy's words. He had never heard someone word so encouraging since his time with Dr. Hirolik. Yo, when do you think people die? When they are shot through the heart by the bullet of a pistol, number. When they are ravaged by an incurable disease, number. When they drink a soup made from a poisonous mushroom, no. It's when they are forgotten. Even after I'm gone, my dream will come true. The ailing hearts of the people will be cured. Lucy suddenly looked at Chopper with sweetly sad eyes. Don't worry, Chopper. Together, we can beat this guys. They will never take down this flag, she said. Chopper blinked before giving a firm nod and turning to Wapol. She's right, we won't let you destroy this flag. Even if Dr. Hiralik forgave you for it, I will not. He yelled as he charged at Wapol's minions while Lucy jumped off the castle to face off against the big jackass himself. The battle then resumed once more. Sanji would have helped himself, but due to his broken ribs and spinal fissure, he was unable to give his signature swift kicks. Chopper had managed to subdue Wapol's minions, but Lucy had suddenly lost Wapol. Her mind then went off with a light bulb when she saw the castle shake a bit. Dear God, Nami was still in there. The pirate teen had to move. Fast. Gum Gum Bazooka. Wapol didn't even stand a chance as Lucy rubber limbs shot back and came forward, hitting him directly in that fat head of his and sending him past Drum Island and beyond. Lucy breathed heavily once the tyrant became nothing more than a tiny speck in the sky. Finally, after a long and vigorous battle, it was over. Wapol would never return to the Snow Kingdom. Ever again. Lucy closed her briefly, letting her slightly sweaty skin be cooled down by the ice wind before noticing two figures at the other side of the castle. With a jump start, she cried out, "Gum Gum Rocket." And she sent flying to the intruders, and she got lucky enough to crash one of them with her into the snowdrift. The two tumbled into the frozen flakes until Lucy pinned down the person with her legs holding down their abdomen and her hands holding down their arms. Lucy breathed heavily and she made a, "What the heck?" look when she saw she was looking into familiar, dark green eyes. What the heck, Lucy?" groaned Zoro as he rubbed his aching head. Lucy giggled. "Whoops. Sorry, Zoro. Though you were an enemy," she said in a joking tone. Zoro rolled his eyes and he shifted his hips. "Yeah, say, Captain, could you get off me? I think the others will get the wrong idea," said the soon-to-be world's greatest swordsman as he flushed a bit of red at their position. Lucy looked at their position and she gave a faint blush. Personally, she felt rather comfortable. But, not want to make this time more awkward than it was, Lucy got off her first mate and they stood up, soon joining the others. "So, what have you guys been up to?" asked the pirate captain. Usopp suddenly did a dynamic pose. "Well, if you must know, we had to climb through thousands of snow trenches and avalanches. The others were afraid, but I, the brave Usopp, was not. The weather was tough, but however. Actually, we used a rope cart to get here," said Vivi. Usopp fell into the snow anime style while Lucy just gave a nod in understanding. The man who had greeted them earlier, Dalton, had walked out of the rope car. He was injured due to an earlier battle he had with Wapol, but his injuries were not all fatal. "By the way, what have you been doing here, Lucy?" "Where are the others?" asked Zoro. Lucy leaned back on her heels. "Well, let's see. We beat Big Mouth, made a friend with a reindeer, met a crazy witch doctor who took care of us, and, oh yeah, turns out that the reindeer can walk on two legs, talk, fight really cool, and he's a doctor," said the girl nonchalantly and calmly. Everyone stared at her in disbelief before Zoro's sweat dropped. Okay," he said, thinking that his captain might have fell on her head when she was climbing up the mountain. "Ah, a monster," Usopp suddenly yelled at the top of his lungs, pointing at a hiding Chopper. The little reindeer flinched in fear. The villagers all came to hear the liars yell and Chopper had began to run away, screaming in fear. "Idiot, he's my friend," yelled Lucy angrily as she bonked Usopp on the head. She then began chasing off after Chopper, who just wanted to get the heck away from the scene. The rest of the team laughed silently at the two. "Get back here, reindeer. Usopp was just being a jerk. I don't care. Stay away. Your friends are scary. You just don't know them yet. Come back and meet them. With friends like yours, WHO needs enemies. Reindeer. WHAAA. Snow gently fell from the sky as the full moon rose into the nighttime sky. The snow glittered to the ground and pine trees. Said trees gave off their enriching aroma and a few stars twinkled in the sky. If one took their time to stop and look, they would see that this scene was nice and quiet. "Reindeer, where are you? Well, that is unless the person was at a good 500-mile distance from the strongest pirate in the East Blue. She and the current Straw Hat Gang were still at Drum Castle and Lucy had not given up in searching for Chopper with no luck. On the bright side, it seemed that Nami was getting more and more better. She wasn't coughing the slightest and her fever wasn't as high as it originally was. "Come on, Lucy. We've been searching for that guy for a long time. Just give it up," said Usopp as he was making a snowman. Zoro nodded in agreement. "He's right, Lucy. It's obvious that he doesn't want to join us," said the green-haired samurai. Lucy gave a frown and focused look. "No, I want the reindeer to join us," she yelled stubbornly. "Just because you want something doesn't mean you'll get it," yelled Zoro in a pissed-off tone with a face to match. Seriously, was this girl as stubborn and dense than she looked? Lucy blinked when she heard footsteps and she turned. She grinned excitedly when she saw it was Chopper. "Reindeer. Awesome. This means you're gonna join our crew, right?" "Alright," cheered the raven-haired pirate with a happy dance. Chopper just stared at the snow covered for a moment before looking at Lucy angrily. "No, I can't join your crew. I don't belong with humans. I'm a talking reindeer. WHO walks on 2 feet and I have a blue nose." he yelled. He then calmed his breath and he looked at them sadly. "But, if you ever come around here again, maybe things will be different and—" "Shut up. Let's go." Lucy suddenly yelling into the sky. Chopper gasped and he soon felt tears come into his eyes. Those words had somehow finally opened his heart. With his heart open, he began crying and yelling to the air as well. Everyone gave knowing smiles, for they had gained a new crew member. "Whoa, that's so pretty. Guys, look at the snow, wow," exclaimed Lucy, pointing to the sky. The crew, along with Chopper, had just made it back to the Going Merry when something amazing happened. There were the shots of cannons in the air and the falling snow of Drum Island had turned into a beautiful shade of light pink. The pink snow gave a flowery effect, almost resembling falling sakura petals. As the crew watched in amazement, Chopper slowly began to smile as a tear ran down his furry cheek. "One day, I'll make sakura flowers bloom on this sad country. Then its sadness will melt away like the snow. Can you see this where you are, Dr. Hiralik? Your dream, it's finally coming true," though the doctor as the pink frost flakes fell. Lucy smiled at the pretty sight and she gave a light shiver. Her second coat had been destroyed during her fight with Wapple and she had just noticed. Zoro saw his captain shiver and with a sigh, he unbuttoned his own coat and he placed it over Lucy's shoulders. The onyx-eyed girl looked at him before smiling, pulling the coat closer to her and resting her head against Zoro's shoulder. The swordsman didn't mind one bit. "Hey guys, wait here for a sec," said Usopp as he raced out of the deck for a second before coming back with mugs of sake. He handed a mug to everyone and he held up his own. "I propose a toast to our new ship Dr. Chopper," he yelled heartily. Everyone agreed and they all jumped in the air with glee. "To Chopper, have they made it off the island yet?" Doctorine shrugged as she stared at the last remains of the pink snow fall onto Drum Kingdom. She and Dalton were sitting in the snow and they were watching the moon. "Who knows?" said the witch doctor. She then suddenly smiled. "What I do know is that my son is in good hands," she said in a trance-like voice. Dalton stared at the old woman for a while before two of his men came over and showed him a bounty poster. He gasped when he saw it was Lucy Bounty. "Wait, that young lady had a 30 million berries. When was this?" asked the once royal guard. His men bowed apologetically. "We apologize. We've only recently discovered it. We found out about it over a while ago. It happened when a strange man came into Roble town. A few days earlier, a lone man walked through the streets of Roble town. Not much could be decided about him since he was cloaked in black. The only other noticeable things that were on him were a necklace with a bull insignia on it and a big black hat with two strange smileys, one mischievous looking while the other with grief. Half of his face was shadowed by the hat. We had no idea where he came from. He just said he was looking for Blackbeard the pirate, the man who had just invaded a while back. When he found out that Blackbeard had left, he asked, 'In that case, has a she pirate with a straw hat come anywhere by?' We didn't know, so he showed us the wanted poster. He said, 'In that case, if you ever do spot her, tell her I'll be waiting for her in Alabasta in 10 days. No more, no less,' said the man with slight sinistry in his voice. He suddenly pulled a bottle out of his cloak pocket. It was wrapped in a thin cloth with a string tied at the nozzle. The man uncorked it as he began walking away until one of Dalton's men called out something. "Wait, you didn't even say your name," he called. The mysterious man stopped and he turned. "Oh yes, forgive me. The name's Ace. If you tell the Straw Hat Girl that, she'll know," he said as he took a swing at the bottle and he corked it again, putting it back in his pocket and beginning to walk away again. "Hey, catch that man. He's an eat and run. Yike, I'll leave you guys to it. Present. Huh, so he'll be waiting for her in Alabasta," said Dalton, rubbing his chin. Doctorine was hardly paying attention. She was smirking knowingly at Lucy's bounty. "Poster. Something wrong. You seem puzzled," said Dalton. Doctorine closed her eyes wisely. "Tell me, Dalton, have you ever heard of a man by the name of Galdi?" "Roger?" she asked. Daylant arched his eyebrow. "Galdi, you mean Gold Roger, the deceased pirate king?" he asked. Doctorine chuckled. "Is that what he's called nowadays? Well, it seems that girl Chopper left and headed to sea with, is more special than she appears to be," said the old doctor as she looked at Lucy's grinning picture. "It seems that the will of D still lives. Well, what do you know?" she said as she watched the pink snow slowly fade. "With that, there is yet or still more questions to be asked. Who was the mysterious man? What would become of the Straw Hats? And what was this so-called will of D?" Chapter 14, Siblings Reunite. "Okay, Lucy, I will ask again, what happened to our 3 months' worth of food supplies?" asked Sanji, for the 10th time today. The Going Merry had been sailing for a few days after the crew had left Drum Island and everyone was out on the sky deck. Lucy looked down at her feet for a second. She then looked up with whistling pursed lips and her eyes looking the other way. "I don't know, no siree," she said in a fake sing-song voice. Sanji sighed as he lightly bit the cigarette held between his teeth. "Please, Lucy, you know you can tell me. Come on, out with it," he said in a patient and calm tone. Lucy's lying face fell and she looked down at the ground. I'm sorry, Sanji. I was really hungry after that fight with Big Mouth. I'm really, super sorry, she whispered in a guilty voice. Sanji's eyes danced with hearts and he patted Lucy's head affectionately. Ah, it's okay, Lucy. If you were hungry, then you did nothing wrong. I'll just see if we have anything else to eat in storage. Don't be sad, you look so much cuter happy, himmed the blonde as he noodle danced his way to the storage room. Lucy raised her brow and with a shrug, she skipped her way to where Usopp was, where he was tugging on his fishing line. He had clearly caught something big. Hey, Lucy, help me out will ya? Yelled the sniper as whatever he caught on his line struggled. Lucy raced over and she held back on Usopp's stomach as she and the curly-haired teen pulled. The thing on the line flew into the air and landed onto the deck with a loud thump. Lucy and Usopp checked out the person and they recoiled. It was a man who wore gaudy makeup and frilly swan robes. He must have been a transvestite. Everyone on the ship, counting out Sanji who was in the storage room, ran to the scene and they drew back just like the two other pirates. The man coughed up a bit of seawater and he looked up to the crew. Ah, thank you for saving my life. I shall never forget your kindness. May I trouble you for a bowl of soup? Asked the strange man with a slightly scrawny English voice. Hell no, yelled the crew madly. If the man thought he was going to get food out of them, he was dreaming. Lucy was the first to recover from her yelling and she sat cross-legged on the floor. What were you doing in the ocean? Were you drowning or something? Asked the she captain. The man nodded his head. Precisely, little girl. You see, I ate a devil fruit and I was unfortunate to fall of my ship a while ago, he said. Devil fruit, huh? Asked Usopp with interest. The man nodded again. Yes. Care to see what it is? He asked. Lucy and the crew nodded their heads and they waited. The strange man suddenly face-palmed Lucy and the girl flew back at the impact. Zoro's hands went to his katanas and he gave a threatening growl. Why the hell did that bastard hit his captain? Son of a. Wait, hold on a second. This is just for a little fun, remember? Asked Lucy's voice. Zoro froze and he face twisted in doubt. That was Lucy's voice but, it was coming from Lucy. Relax, mean guy, said the strange man with Lucy's face. He had every detail right. From her onyx black eyes to her monkey-like grin. Everyone gasped with shock. Lucy gasped with amazement. Whoa, no way, that's my face. She called excitedly. Fun, yelled the Lucy look-like excitedly. The doppelganger then laughed and she tapped her face with her left hand, turning back into a man. Everyone was shocked beyond belief. As you can see, that is my devil fruit power. The power of the clone fruit, he said as he patted Usopp's, Chopper's, Nami's, and Zoro's faces. I apologize for slapping you, little girl. I just felt like having some fun, said the man. His face then changed into Usopp's. So as you can see, all I have to do, his face then changed to Zoro's. Is touch my right hand to you, his face then went to Chopper's. As you can see, I can mimic anyone, his face then changed into Nami's. I can even change into the person's body, he said as he pulled up the shirt of his robe. The three youngest pirates screamed and Nami punched the copycat on the head angrily. A sudden foghorn caught their attention and the crew looked. A giant boat with pink sails and a swan figurehead was sailing towards. The strange man jumped close to it. Well, I must be off. Farewell, my friends, he called as he jumped onto the other ship. Lucy, Usopp, and Chopper began crying when they lost their new friend. Of course, what one of the men on the other ship made everyone on the Going Merry flinch. Good to see you're all right, Mr. 2. Mr. 2, exclaimed the Straw Hat crew as the flamboyant ship sailed away. Everyone was silent for a second before Nami sighed. This isn't good. Now that we know he's a member of Baroque Works, it could cause us trouble since he copied our faces, she said. Lucy tilted her head with a bit of fear in her eyes. Zoro placed his hand reassuringly on the girl's shoulder. Don't worry, Lucy. Maybe this could be an advantage to us, he said. Lucy looked up at her first mate and she gave a faint smile. Her eyes then sparkled with an idea. I got an idea. Wait here for a sec, she called as she ran into the ship for a second before coming back with bandages and a black marker. We can make a mark on our bodies and hide then with these bandages. It worked with my Atlas beetles when I was a kid, she said. Everyone blinked and they grinned in agreement. That would have to be one of the most smartest ideas Lucy had. And it would probably be only the one of the few their captain had. So everyone aboard the ship had AX drawn on their arm with a bandage wrapped around them. They had to admit, this was a pretty good idea. The ship suddenly gave a rocking jerk and everyone gave yells of surprise as a giant, cat-like monster popped out of the water. Chopper and Usopp cowered in fear while Lucy and Zoro suddenly looked ravenous. It was a simple equation. Big cat plus starving swordsman plus starving strongest pirate of the East Blue equals steamed catfish. Before the two could even catch the cat, Vivi had suddenly stopped them. The cat had easily gotten away. What the hell, Vivi? Yelled Lucy, grinding her teeth. Vivi pointed north. That's why. Look, she yelled with a smile. The crew turned and their own smiles appeared on their faces. There, just beyond the horizon, there was a landscape with golden sand mountains and plains. Finally, they had made it to Alabasta. Vivi's country. So what happened around here? A guy just dropped dead, believe it or not. He was just talking to the owner of the restaurant over a plate of beef and he just suddenly dropped dead there. Poor guy. He must have eaten a desert strawberry. He didn't even see it coming. Everyone who was around the dead body didn't move. They just stared at the young man who had suddenly died while eating. Everyone suddenly let out a scream as the man had suddenly came back to life. The young man slouched over and he looked at everyone who watched them, confusion and sleep mixed into his extremely dark brown eyes. The young man was tall and muscular with handsome features that were dusted with childish freckles. He wore no shirt, showing off his slim and lean upper body to the world. On his upper arms were criss-crossing arm bands and imprinted on his back was a purple tattoo that was in the shape of parallel cross bones with skull with a white mustache. Riding near his hips were knee-length black shorts with an orange belt and green sheath dagger. He also wore heavy black boots, a red beaded necklace, and a bull skull medallion connected to a big orange hat propped on his messy, jet black-haired head. Along the brim of the hat were red beads with two smileys, one mischievous and one grieving. "Oi, why the heck are you all staring at me?" said the young man with a giant yawn. "We were worried about you, idiot," yelled the entire restaurant. The tattooed man cracked his neck and he poked his fork in his beef. "The people around here are weirdos, huh?" he asked. The restaurant owner gave a sweat drop. I suppose. "The important thing is that you're all right," he said as the man lifted the poked meat to his mouth, only to give a snore and fall back into the meat. "Oi, cut that out," yelled everyone angrily, clearly getting annoyed. The man just gave a gargled snore. As everyone around the place began to leave, the young man woke up moments later and he reached into the bag he was carrying, pulling out a rolled up piece of paper and a bottle with a cloth and string tied around it. As he popped open the bottle, the mysterious man unrolled the sheet. "Say, mister, I wanna ask ya something. Have you seen this girl? She's a pirate with a straw hat," he said as he took a sip of the liquid inside the bottle. The older man looked at the bounty poster of the grinning girl with the straw hat. He then shook his head. "Nope, sorry, stranger. There hasn't been anyone looking like this crossing around here," he said. The freckled man frowned as he put away his bottle and rolled up the bounty poster. "Damn, I was so sure she was here. What bad luck, huh?" he asked. "Luck has nothing to do with this. You've got a lot of nerve showing up in a public place, Portgas D. Ace," said a gruff voice. Ace gave a dark smirk and he turned to the owner of the gruff voice. It was none other than Captain Smoker of Luge Town. Everyone gasped and they whispered nervously. "No way. That's Portgas D. Ace. He's the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates. You're kidding. What's he doing in a place like this?" Smoker puffed out the smoke that came from his 2 cigars. He had gained great intel that Monkey D. Lucy, the first ever pirate to escape from him, was in Alabasta. As clear as the day was bright, he had instead found Portgas D. Ace, whose head was worth, for the moment, much higher than the strongest pirate of the East Blue. "Tell me, pirate, I'm curious. What is a pirate like you doing in Alabasta?" asked the white gray-haired Marine. Ace gave a dark chuckle and he looked at the Marine with mischievousness playing in his dark eyes. "I'm looking for someone, my little sister. Give me FFFFFFFFFOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOoooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooooo past them. Lucy was sniffing the air, her nostrils flaring and a small scowl on her lips. When the Going Merry had docked, Lucy had already hightailed it to find a place to eat. His stomach sounded like a thundering orchestra. "Damn it! Where the hell are the restaurants of this place?" yelled Lucy angrily as she darted her head in all directions. Her nose picked up the familiar scent of food and Lucy kicked her running into high gear, following the delicious aroma. Back at the restaurant, Ace and Smoker were having a stare down. Both of their eyes were daring each other to make a move. Everyone in the restaurant watched the scene with worry and fear. Finally, Ace spoke. "So, now what?" he asked. He was finding this stare down to be rather boring. "What do you expect, pirate? I'm taking you in," said Smoker. Ace gave another smirk. "Nah, I think I'll pass," he said in careless tone. "Figured you would say that," said Smoker as he gave an exhausted sigh. Doing all this Lucy chasing was a real pain in the ass. Smoker's hand went into a fist and it churned into smoke. "Well, as long as I'm a Marine, and you are a wanted pirate, I cannot let you go," he said. Ace gave his hat a light tip. "Well, that doesn't seem like a good reason. Care if I gave you one?" asked the dark-haired man with a cocky smirk. And at that moment, it seemed like fate decided to play its playful yet twisted little game. Gum gum rocket. Smoker's shot wide as the wind knocked right out of his lungs as something was crashed into him, sending him flying to Ace, who was unfortunate to be caught in the crash. The two were sent flying past several walls while Lucy did a little happy dance. She was somehow lucky enough to not be sent flying with the two other men. "All right, I found a restaurant. Yes, yes, yes," cheered the sheet pirate as she danced. She then took a seat and she banged her utensils against the wood of the counter. The restaurant owner stared at her in bewilderment. Come on, old man. Food, food, food. Now, now, now. Cheered Lucy, oblivious to what she had done. Ace cursed under his breath as he brushed off the debris that had fallen on him. What the hell just happened? He muttered harshly. Smoker got up as well, just as confused. Ace stood up and he walked his way through the walls he crashed into. He bowed to the families of the crashed walls and he finally got back to the restaurant. Alright, who's the wise ass? The pirate then stopped himself when he saw a 17-year-old girl consuming large amounts of restaurant food. He grinned from ear to ear. Those black eyes, that straw hat, that little scar under the girl's eye, he'd know that face anywhere. Hey, Lou, straw hat, yelled Smoker as he shoved Ace harshly against the side when he spotted the pirate he was looking for. Ace crashed into a wall with a crack, his body slipping to the ground. Smoker stomped over to Lucy, who looked like in a lost trance while stuffing her face. Smoker waited for a few seconds until he found the girl's eating annoying. Oi, quit stuffing your face, he yelled. Lucy gave him a lizard-eyed look as she ate. Hold on, this guy, realization then hit her. You're that smoky guy, what are you doing here? She yelled, spitting some food in Smoker's face. Said Marine growled in annoyance. Lucy suddenly held of her hand and she stuffed her cheeks with the last bits off food, her face resembling a chipmunk's. Thanks for the food, she yelled as she raced out of the restaurant. Get back here, straw hat, yelled Smoker as he chased after the raven-haired girl. Ace staggered to his feet and he started chasing the two as well. Hey, wait up, Luce, it's me, come on, Lucy, quit running, come back, he yelled as he chased him. The three had gotten into a all-out chase, with some added Marines following them as well. Lucy swallowed the last of her food. Shit, why me? Though Lucy desperately as she was chased. Alright, so do we have what we need? Asked Nami as the Straw Hat crew had gathered around a small alleyway. One of them was dressed in alabasta wear, minus Nami and Vivi who were wearing dancing girl outfits, courtesy of Sanji. The whole group nodded and they suddenly heard yelling. Catch that pirate, Keikaya, stay away. The whole crew's eyes popped out of their heads as Lucy ran past them, briefly waving. The team looked to see that the Marines were after the pirate and they soon followed their captain, no questions asked. Fall back, men, Straw Hat's mine, yelled Smoker as he ran past his men and he turned his fist into smoke, performing his white snake technique. The rope of smoke charged at Lucy. The she-captain's eyes widened with fear. Crap, someone help me, heat haze. Everyone stopped in their tracks and their mouths dropped in astonishment as Smoker's white snake was stopped by a blast of fire. The trails of flames licked the air as they died down. The trails came streaming from the body of Portgas D. Ace. He gave smug smirk to the Marine captain. That attack was fruitless. With my strength of fire, and your power of smoke, we are even matched, said the dark-eyed pirate. Everyone just stood transfixed for a few moments before Lucy was able to choke out a few words. Is that you, Ace? She asked, not believing in what she was seeing. Ace turned his head and his smug smirk turned into a knowing one. You haven't changed a bit, Lucy, he said in a calm and good tone. It is you, your body, it's on fire. Does that mean you ate a devil fruit? Asked the young pirate. Ace gave a curt nod and he turned back to the Marines. Yeah, it's kind of a long story. We'll talk later. Just get going. Go on, he yelled. Lucy blinked before turning and running. Right, let's go guys, she yelled. Her crew followed right behind her, questions filling their heads. Smoker glared hard at Ace. I don't understand. Why did you protect Straw Hat? He muttered. Ace's smug grin returned. Can't a person worry about their dippy little sister? He asked. Smoker's eyes widened before they gave a glare. So the two thorns in my side are brother and sister. Oh joy, he said in a sarcastic tone. Ace gave another dark chuckle. Who said anything about brother and sister? I did say person, didn't I? He asked. Smoker cocked his brow. What are you getting at, Portgas? He asked. Ace smirked and he looked at the sun. It's close to noon and I just drank the last of my medicine. And it was only a little, too. Ah well, I guess it wouldn't hurt if a few people knew of my secret, he said. Ace was suddenly engulfed in a giant flame. Smoker squinted his eyes, trying to figure out what this pirate was meaning. When the flames died down, the Marine's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. What the hell? Lucy, just who the heck was that person? Asked Nami as the crew ran through the bazaar to find their docked ship. Lucy turned and she gave a grin. That was Ace. What, I never told you about him? She asked as they ran. Nothing, so how do you know him? Is he your boyfriend or something? Asked Usopp. Zoro felt a pang of jealousy hit his stomach while Lucy stuck her tongue out. No way, I'll admit he's cool, even when he hasn't taken his medicine, she said. Medicine? Asked Chopper. Yeah, though, I usually see him her, as a guy. It's a rare chance when I see him as a her. Her, yeah, she isn't my brother, she's my sister. Sister. Whitebeard's 2nd Division commander is a woman. Yelled Smoker as he stared in a glare of disbelief at Ace. He forgive me, she gave him a arched brow. Yeah, I'm a girl. Wanna make something out of it? She asked, flickers of flame flowing out of her body. The new Ace was definitely different from the other Ace. Her body was lean and curvy in all the right places. That mop of messy hair had turned wavy and long, reaching all the way to her hips. The handsome features had turned soft yet agile, those bronze freckles now on perfect cheekbones. During the time she was in the flame, the female Ace had put on a black, backless top with flame marks flowing from the hem. The new Ace took off her hat, placed it to her chest, and gave a light bow of her head. Sorry for not really giving my real name. Ace is only an alias. I am Portgas D. Anne, she said smugly. Smoker's shock drained out and the both of his fist turned into smoke. Man or woman, you're still coming with me. I'm sure the Marines will be shocked by this, said the smoking Marine as he charged at the Fire Devil user. Anne threw another smirk and she changed into a being of flame, charging back at the Marine. The two met and a mixture of flame and smoke clashed, swirling around the two. Like I said, Smokey, you and I are equal. I am fire and you are smoke, said Anne as she threw a flamed punch at Smoker. The Marine dodged it and he kicked at Anne, missing by a hair. True, but you're still coming with me, Portgas. Once I capture you, we're going to see about that shape-shifting technique of yours and some intel on Whitebeard, he said as they fought. Anne smirked again and she gave a flip. Sorry, Smokes, but I gotta check on my little sis. It's been a while since we seen each other. But before I do, Anne suddenly disappeared and a wall of blazing fire rose. Smoker looked around for the girl. Think fast, Smokey. Smoker turned to punch the girl when he was tackled to the ground, long and smooth legs pinning his hips and soft and warm lips crushing his own. Smoker's eyes shot wide and he gave a muffled yell at the back of his throat. Anne's eyebrows frowned aggressively as she deepened the kiss, her mouth moving against the Marines and her tongue roaming unmapped territory. Smoker felt it was harder to breathe and his mind twisting like a hurricane. He had never felt this sudden feeling that was burning in his heart and stomach. He then gained his senses again and he lifted his hand to tear Anne off him when the Flame Devil Fruit user jumped off him. Smoker sat up and he wiped his mouth angrily. The hell? What's wrong with you, woman? He yelled, spitting at the ground to get the pirate's taste out of his mouth. Anne smirked and he flipped her long hair back. Nothing, Smokey. It just felt like something I wanted to try, she said as she licked her upper lip, tasting tobacco and mints. Anne then tipped her hat in an old-fashioned manner. Well, I gots to go. I just have to see my sis. Bye, Smokey. She called as she blew him a kiss and turned into a comet of fire and flew out of the scene. Smoker sat there, shocked beyond words. A pirate, a damn pirate who was one of the most wanted people in the world, had just kissed him. His face turned red with anger and smoke flew out of his body in a wild frenzy. Damn those D sisters. Huh, well that's weird. Where did everyone go? Lucy asked herself with a tilt of her head. She had somehow got separated from her crew while they were running and the teen pirate had found herself sitting on a barrel in an alley. Well, I guess giving you the chance to escape was pointless, huh? Lucy ducked her head around before she looked up and smiled at her older sister. Hi-ya, Anne, she called as the older sister jumped off the ledge of a building. Anne gave a knowing smirk. It's been a while, huh? She asked. You could say that, said Lucy with a grin. Anne laughed and she pulled her baby sister into a hug. Lucy giggled and she hugged her sister back. Once the two finished, the both of them placed their arms on the barrel in an arm wrestling position. So how many years has it been? Asked Lucy with a smile. Anne shrugged. Don't know. 2, 3 years, give or take 1, I guess. You haven't changed though, baby sis. A little taller, yeah, but you still look the same, said the older girl as the two began weighing down each other's arms. Yeah, same with you. Besides from eating that devil fruit and taking your medicine, you haven't changed a bit, grunted Lucy as the two's hands went from one side to another. Remember when you would sneak into the watermelon fields, eat 1,000 watermelons, and spit them out like a Gatling gun? Muttered Lucy as the both of them got toughed. Hey, that wasn't me, that was you, argued Anne as sweat formed on the two's brows. The farmers would chase you and you'd scream like a girl, even when you were a guy, continued Lucy as the two's arms met halfway. No way, that was you. I watched and laughed, yelled Anne as her and her sister's faces flushed with red and their strength broke the barrel. Both sisters laughed and they high-fived. Still equally matched, said Lucy with a smile. Anne nodded in agreement. Yeah, she said. The older D sister smiled and she reached into her bag, pulling out a canteen. By the way, those guys you were running with, they're your crew or something? She asked. Lucy grinned and nodded. Ahoo, they are the coolest. I told you'd I get a crew, she said. Anne laughed and she poured a bit of water into her palm, splashing a few droplets on her face and neck. Lucy then remembered something. Oh yeah, what are you doing in Alabasta, Anne? She asked. Anne took a drink of her canteen and she placed one hand on her hip. Huh, guess you didn't get my message on Drum Island, right? She asked. Lucy cocked her head with a confused look. Drum Island? She asked, barely even remembering the name. Anne let out a small laugh. Well, I guess that mean, no, then. Don't worry, it was just to let you know that I'd be here for a while. I'm on a mission for Pops, she said. Lucy scratched the back of her neck. Pops, who's that? She asked. Anne gave a wise smile and she turned around, pointing to her bare back. Pops is my captain. Ya see this tattoo? It's my pride and joy. I'm with the Whitebeard Pirates, baby sis, she said. Lucy blinked and she continued to scratch the back of her neck. Whitebeard, Pops, start from the beginning, big sis, she said. Anna laughed again and she crossed her arms behind her head. Okay, cool your jets, rubber gal. Like I said, Whitebeard is my captain. He's the most strongest pirate ever known. And, Anne's brown eyes gave a sign. I'm going to help him become king of the pirates. I ain't gonna help you, Luce. Sorry, pirates code and all that crap. But you and your crew can join us, if y'all want. Come on, it'll be loads of fun, she said as she tossed the younger D sister her canteen. Lucy caught the flask and gave a grin. Nah, I'll pass. 'Cause there's no way they're going to be a king. There's gonna be a queen, and that's yours truly, said the rubber girl as she drank up the canteen quickly. Hey, don't hog it all, ya mooch, yelled Anne as she snatched back the canteen, only to see it empty. Anne gave a small sweat drop while Lucy giggled. Anne placed the drink back in her bag and she slugged it over her shoulder. Well, come on, let's find your crew. I bet they're worried sick, she said as she began to walk. She noticed her sister wasn't following and she turned to see her sister staring at her. Oi, what's up? You're wearing your armbands when you're a girl, said the little sister. Anne looked at her armbands and she gave a laugh. Right you are, baby sis. Right you are, said the older sister as she pulled off her armbands and placed in her bag. Under the armbands were two different tattoos on each upper shoulder. On her left was a tattoo that read, Anne, written in a vertical way. The one on her right had a crossed out S. Both sisters smiled knowingly and they made their way to find the Straw Hat Gang, only to be stopped by petty-looking people with knives and guns. Think your crew can wait a bit? Asked Anne as she cracked her knuckles. Lucy tipped her hat down and she gave a grin. I bet they can. I am the captain, after all. Sheesh, I wish Lucy would show up now. Doesn't she randomly pop up somewhere at the last minute? Asked Usopp as the crew was sailing around the docks, trying to find their captain yet still be hidden. Chopper was looking through a telescope and his eyes widened. Wow, you must be a psychic, Usopp. There she is, called the little doctor, pointing to a waving Lucy by the docks. The Gum-Gum girl stretched her arms all the way to the ship and she flew herself there, performing a clumsy, yet impressive landing. Geez, it's about time, Lucy. Do you know how much trouble you cause us? Asked Nami as she walked over to Lucy with Vivi and Karu. Lucy giggled and she stood up. Sorry, Nami, I was just talking with Anne. Oh yeah, where'd she go? Asked the captain to herself as she stood by the railing of the Going Merry, looking for any sight of her older sister. Anne, oh yeah, you mean that guy you said that was your sister? Speaking of which, what's the deal, Lucy? Who is Ace, or Anne, or whoever that person was? Asked Vivi. Lucy gave a grin to her crew. Okay, first of all, her name is Anne. We grew up together when we were little kids. You see, Anne looked like a guy back there because she takes this medicine that makes her look like a guy. She also calls herself Ace because she doesn't want people to know she's a girl, said the captain. Everyone gave a gasp. Well, this was some interesting news. Chopper seemed like the first to recover. I don't understand. Why does she take that medicine? And why doesn't she want people to know that she's really a girl? Asked the reindeer. Lucy winked and she pressed her finger to her lips. Sorry, that's a secret, she said in a giggling tone. The girl then turned to the water. But, even if she was a guy or girl, Anne always managed to beat the crap out of me while growing up. But I'm older now. I'm sure I can kick her butt no, boasted the teen pirate with a laugh. Whose butt are you talking about, Luce? Said pirate yelped and jumped as she span around, meeting the playful grin of her sisters. Lucy grinned. Aw, there you are, big sis. Well, I'd like you to meet my crew, said the teen. Anne gave a smile and a tip of her hat. Pleasure to meet you all. My name is Portgas D. Anne, I hope my little sister hasn't been giving you any trouble, she said. The next thing Anne knew, her hands were caught in another's and Sanji was looking at her with heart-shaped eyes and wisps of cigarette smoke. Oh, she was no trouble at all, dear Anne. Little Lucy is such the angel. My name is Sanji and may I say that you are extremely beautiful. You simply take my breath away, cooed the blonde. Anne smiled politely. Why thank you. It's nice to meet you as well, Sanji, she said, giving a wink and lighting up Sanji's cigarette. Sanji gave a noodle dance and he skipped around like the love-struck fool he was. Everyone on the ship sweat dropped and Lucy pointed to each member on board. Anyway, you met Sanji. He's a really awesome cook, by the way. The guy with the long nose is Usopp. He's a cool sniper and he lies a lot. The two girls are Nami and Vivi. Nami's the navigator while Vivi's a princess we're guarding. The duck is Vivi's pet, Karu. The reindeer is Chopper, he ate the human fruit and he's a doctor. And last but of course not all least is Zoro. He's the most coolest swordsman in the world, said the D sister. The crew and Anne exchanged hellos and Anne bowed her head. Thank you so much for taking care of my little sister. I know she can be quite the handful. I'm truly grateful, she said. Everyone could help but think how different the 2D sisters were. No way those two could be related. Sanji suddenly noticed something and he pointed to the many ships following them. Looks like we have trouble, he said. Everyone looked and they saw the ships had the Baroque works marks on their flags. Those guys again? Asked Lucy. Luce, let me handle them, said Anne, putting down her bag. Lucy shrugged. Sure, go ahead, she said. Anne nodded and she jumped off her ship and onto a small schooner. Her foot went aflame and the schooner speeded off to the ships. Everyone on the Going Merry stared at their captain. Just what the heck was going on in that mind of hers? Anne smirked as her schooner sailed closer and with one jump, the vessel snuck into the water and Anne made a leap in the air. The girl gave a forward dive and her entire body burst into flames. She flew past the ships like a comet and Anne hopped onto her boat on the other side, making a turn and turning her fist into fire. Fire fist, yelled the flame girl as she punched her arm and whirls of fire shot out, the fire catching the ships directly. All the men on the ships yelled and they tried their best to get out of the burning boats. Anne blew smoke off her hand in a cool manner. Yahoo! That's my big sister for ya. All right Anne, cheered Lucy. She was so amazed that her sister was that amazing. Anne smiled and she sailed her schooner back to the ship and she jumped back on. Hell yeah, what did you think I got weak or something? Asked the fire fist. Lucy laughed and she shook her head. No way, you're too strong to ever get weak. Say, how about you join my crew, Anne? Come on, it'll be the coolest, said the team captain. Anne grinned and she flicked her little sister's nose. Nah, like I said, sis, I'm on a mission. I'm looking for a man called Blackbeard. He used to be a crew member of mine before he killed one of my fellow commanders. I just heard he's been showing up around here. I just recently found out he's northeast from here, said the fire-using girl. Hey, we're heading over there. Wanna tag along? Asked Nami. Anne looked at them all before smiling. Sure, sounds like fun. I just wanna know if you guys got some herbs and powders I can use. I gotta make another batch of my medicine. Is that alright? Asked the dark-haired girl. Chopper nodded. You can use some of my supplies, if you want, he said. Anne smiled. Thank you, you cute little doctor, she said. Chopper blushed and he did his mad yet very pleased dance. Lucy smiled and she held out her hand. Welcome to the crew, big sis. Anne smiled and she took her sister's hand. For the time being, baby sister. With that, they shook